But did you use the?
Yeah, we used it, so that was working fine. We do have a couple of panels, so it is handy for the panel sessions.
And what is good is that it has been reloaded.
Hello, hello.
Ouais, it's working.
Perfect.
Both equipment are working. Perfect.
It does the same thing both times. It's like slow.
Perhaps you have too many files in your. No? Very often it's because you have a lot of things on the background or lot of files open, no?
No, I always have lots of stuff. But this is, it's the server, you know, that does capture. So this is just the, yeah. It detects it's an apple. Okay, I'm going to do what I did before. I'm just going to turn off.
And you're on this guest on this one.
Yeah. On. Yes.
Hop.
No, it's not for the.
What did you say to everyone to come to around?
Basically, we'll start at 9:15, but to remember, security can take a little time. It's not capturing it again. Then it's sometimes, well, because you're a PC organization, the Apple capture can be off. Because everything's built to assume it's Microsoft. And has Cisco shown using Microsoft?
Sorry?
Cisco is shown using Microsoft. There you go.
Hop. You have to put the second password.
Yep. I have it here. Easy.
I will bring the sandwich still. It's okay around 1? Between 12:30 and 1 or think he delivered around 12:30.
Yeah, 12:30 was perfect. I'm just checking the agenda now to see.
Because he told us that he cannot do it before.
Okay, well, 12:30 is fine.
Okay.
One.
Anyway, if I get them before, even I'm in part of a meeting, but I will do a break.
Okay,
10
thank
minutes
you.
break, putting the sandwiches here. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's the same. So coffee this afternoon around 2.
Perfect.
Water they can take as much as they want. Huh?
Yeah, I only had more than enough water,
Yeah.
so that worked out.
But it's good to have some water, at least more than.
Okay, so yeah, 12:30. So I have 12:30 is
Okay.
lunch,
Okay.
and then 2 will be fine.
Okay.
Okay, so that's working. That's work. Oh, I need to check. Live stream. I hope it gets dark like this. Then we'll have perfect lighting because it was getting quite bright. There was a lot of reflection off the.
But today you will not have any sun. For sure. Everything is working, so.
Yeah.
Perfect. Jesus. Great.
Yep. Good there. Good.
Well, let's take a coffee.
Yeah.
We have built our 5G here, it's fully from scratch. We
Yeah.
decided to do it ourselves. Okay. We install the feeds, we are working with small companies for the distribution, we are working with a lot of small companies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you should. Because then gives you the expertise and then it becomes very low cost rather than having to pay.
I mean, when you have to deliver 5G for hundreds of 1 million people, it's not a lot of stuff.
No, not
We don't have a solution below 2 or 3,000 people. People are in that Nokia is working on it. Because we are working with them also on ubiquity, but you see that ubiquity is something different.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different. You see the solution they have for big, for you or for consumer,
Mm-hmm.
they will keep this one.
Yeah.
It's too expensive,
Yeah.
it's too, I mean, for remember for we have 300,000 users.
Okay. But
So, I mean,
yeah. Over what
it's
area
still
though?
60, 70 servers for the After that, some of the servers is not their fault. It's very public safety, it's very security. So you
Yeah.
have this zoning concept,
Mhm.
it's very important public safety.
Yeah.
Still, why Nokia is doing a new product now,
Mhm.
which is called NCS,
Mhm.
Nokia Core Enterprise Solution.
Okay.
It's a full new, but they started from the VP as a solution and they cracked it into a one brand.
Oh, okay.
Basically for doing basically 10 servers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So they are moving a little bit. I mean, the solution is still containerized also.
Mhm.
Why Ericsson is still very old, the VMs and so on.
Yeah.
It's a mix of everything. So I think Nokia is doing a step.
Building
For small
14,000
yeah.
people.
So
I mean, I think 86,000 people. So
it's still a lot.
it's
To
a lot.
keep this business. Because 5G is
Oh,
it's a
it's-
promise, but it's still not yet there.
No. No.
At least in the enterprise, we see a growing now.
Mm-hmm.
We started 3-4 years ago. We believe it was important to have it. Then we saw that finally enterprise are not really. It was also the model in France where they had this private platform that it was more than 160 kilo euro per year. So how can you say to a company,
Yeah.
to spend this money every
Yeah,
year?
this is just so
But
you
now
can-
the new spectrum is there. 100 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's 4,000 euro per year.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Now
So you start to see growing.
okay. But what are the use cases? So what? I mean, is it factory? Oh, okay. I mean, I get public safety.
Transport also. Public safety. I mean, transport is also a big item.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
So what within transport? Oh, like airports. Okay. So it's with a large location with lots of devices.
where they want to have more and more with automatic devices.
Yeah.
Vehicles and so on.
But why 5G rather than Wi-Fi?
Well, outside, it's like indoor, outdoor, very indoor. And I think Wi-Fi, as soon as you have a big amount of users,
Mm-hmm.
means that not designed for latency, but designed for massive users.
Yeah, connectivity. Yeah.
And when you see that here, when we do, you have seen
Yeah.
this. Well, it's a trial, of course,
Mhm.
but we are working also with. I mean, when you do a robot like
Mhm.
this one,
Yeah.
so you put the robot here.
Mm-hmm.
For the empty robot,
Mm-hmm.
we have added the connectivity, like
Yeah.
this. So we are using the router.
Yeah.
But then we have developed our AI on it,
Mm-hmm.
and then this is not there. So from this you see, it does exactly what you do with your hand.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can the room,
Yeah.
and you see what it's doing, and with your hands, you move your hands, it does exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite good. We have more than around 4,000 there's no logic inside.
Yep.
Everything is executing the application.
Mm-hmm.
And we have even the application in Microsoft. The part of the application is in Microsoft in Netherlands because when you deploy the container there,
Mm-hmm.
the logic goes to the Microsoft and it thinks, okay, there is a new thing to be fetched and it gives an order to this one. And this one will go and fetch it and put it where the logic has been fetched.
Gotcha.
But so the logic for discovering that there is a new container, okay, but give it 50 milliseconds in this way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are using those two together,
Yeah.
in less than 10 milliseconds it's done that way. And Wi-Fi doesn't do that. I mean, we have spoken with a lot of logistic people that say, problem of Wi-Fi, you use the group, they don't use the group. Because mentally,
Yeah.
that's a good point of feedback. Now we have built ourselves. It's a bit, it's a small control.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite expensive actually. And you see we have three pillars. We have three pieces of module.
Mm-hmm.
It's a virtual module, 5G system.
Okay.
5G connectivity.
Gotcha.
And then we have developed ourselves a logic for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we do, we take the skeleton of Microsoft. So you use them, that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
We use that just like.
Yeah.
So we are using the Microsoft.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, you should just train specific process.
And I think they are very good also for AWS. You see people on AWS too. AWS will sell this now everywhere by Amazon. And you could, in fact, it has to, today it has three functions. It detects vibration,
Mm-hmm.
it detects temperature,
Mm-hmm.
and it detects vibration, temperature, and the movement, the turn.
Oh, rotation.
Yeah. But if you have a motor, it also detects the speed of the motor.
Oh, okay.
They call it monochrome.
Mm-hmm.
We have and they provide a small gateway with it because this gateway is
Mm-hmm.
and we have adapted this gateway to connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes to the AWS data center. And the AWS is already putting in Amazon 600,000 people have put in every part of the world.
Oh,
You have 600,000. It's large. And then you provide imagine all the information that is coming. You need a connectivity which is just good for applications. And Wi-Fi doesn't take it back.
so these are 5G modules?
Now, today it's a dedicated, it's not a small gateway.
Yeah. Oh,
This one.
okay. Gotcha.
But this one is proprietary, so it's
Okay. Yeah.
when they say this plus all this.
Yeah.
But then this one, we have it's a Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
So we connect it immediately close to our router.
Yeah.
For ourselves, but they are working with us and they trying to have this module which is called the 5G.
Okay.
That's the next step.
Yeah. Yes, it's a product. Today, a lot of manufacturing.
Today it's not presented. So what they say is that they need to have the connectivity to bring over. But we don't care if it's 20 milliseconds. It's a lot of massive data.
Yeah, because it's just one machine.
600,000 components mean a lot of data.
Yeah.
And they want to be just for the moment presented. What they imagine later on
Mm-hmm.
is doing also
Yeah, more interactive.
more interactive.
So once you do the interactive, then
Their view was first to sell this. So basically you can go on Amazon now, you can buy this one. It's called Monochrome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done for enterprise.
Anyway.
We are planning to put it on this one.
Yeah.
Of course, you can put a big one.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you have data coming every minute. And we do it, we closer to the speed, it's every 5 minutes the same information.
Okay.
You pay for it. So you see, all the companies are working also on it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and because they've continued a lot of their IT initiatives while Google walked away or closed down like recently as well.
Google is quite present, you know, with and I mean, you see, in the opposite of Microsoft, which has done his own, I would say, 5G.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by buying Meta Switch and Affirm.
Exactly.
AWS has two companies.
There should be some people waiting downstairs, no?
But I don't have anything that rings for me. Do you think? I have no information, so either they park it. Ah, no, yes, no.
Okay.
They didn't call me. Okay, I will fetch them. Okay.
Excellent. Morning.
Morning, Alan.
Hey, how are you?
Morning, good, thank you.
Oh, looks like there was a big contingent of people waiting.
Oh, yeah.
Can I
We're
just
talking
check
about
out my
starting
laptop?
actually the event downstairs. Like, who's the first today?
Exactly. Well, we have a first speaker, so.
Yes.
Just move things round.
Quickly check the laptop if I may.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Are you presenting first? You want to go before me and then?
Yeah.
Please. So,
Yeah,
okay.
It's a shame it keeps signing you out.
I know. Oh.
Oh, yeah. Apparently it's signed in already now.
Oh, yes.
I know.
Did it work? So it worked.
Present from our own laptops together?
That's easier. Okay.
Is that your dongle?
That's my dongle.
May I borrow?
When you present at what time?
1 o'clock?
That's perfect. That, I'm probably going to shoot that quickly after that.
Oh, okay.
1 o'clock will be fine, I need to leave about 2, so.
This is the perfect.
Oh, okay.
Someone
I need a dongle.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's struggling to join. Come on.
I know.
Okay, so we're mirroring.
Okay, that's exactly. I can't even that's it. That's exactly where I am.
Let me just join the Wi-Fi.
So do you see the notes?
I mean, you can if you extend your desktop, I guess. But
Okay.
I mean, if you do that and use it as settings as well, then shift this.
Where is that setting on the top?
It's on. It's on your Mac.
Oh, it's the two bars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Present to view. Then the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yes. You got a new connection. Just stop the Wi-Fi, restart, and then you'll get the.
It's like waiting there.
Remember this is the environment, so it's not
What are you adapting for?
anything other than
Yeah, that's the thing that means that
Wi-Fi off. Connect to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It looks like it's okay.
charger for the phone.
Of course, it's chosen my dirty screen as the one to put on the display rather than.
It's live. All your data.
Yeah, exactly.
All your data is everyone's.
Yeah, it's a power bank, but it has also old arcade games that you can play.
Nintendo and
Yeah, probably stolen from Nintendo because I really don't think it's so cheap. But it made for a cool game. While you're charging, you're also playing, so that takes away some of the charges.
Good morning, Goss.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. I was chatting with Paul Walsh last night. He sends his love. No, he doesn't. He says, say hi to Alan. Something like that.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Oh, listen. Sorry, I was just, you know, it is too many things.
How many did we get on the live stream, by the way?
We got up to, I think, peak was 43. So, you know, I mean, it's not bad. You know, I mean, we had damn sight more registrations.
And
But
do you post on YouTube afterwards as well?
yeah, so everything is published. So it's going to take a little bit longer than normal because we got Tad Hack over the
I'll have to
weekend.
I'll rein myself in a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
And I'm gonna leave my dongle and then I'll take my dongle. I think I'm third up, so we'll take it away. Okay, so if you want to just
Shall I just use this?
yeah, you might as well. Then I'll steal it back.
Okay,
Yeah, so the trick is start with your when you present Google Slides. If you start with your presentation, yeah, that's it, and then maximise that one over there, and then you should be good.
Right. Well, Tristan's picking up another group of people. So we wake up at, well, yeah, most weeks at 20 or something. Perfect. That's excellent. Thank you.
I think the first one, I can check. No. The connection, no. Yeah, it's not enough.
4 minutes? Like 5 more minutes?
X or S. Yes.
Patrice is picking up another group of people.
So 5 minutes.
No.
5, 10.
No, it's not.
You don't have time.
How long does this smoke take? How long does this smoke take?
That's how many cigarettes. One very quick.
He can keep going. So he can keep going.
Yes. Unfortunately.
monsieur, c'est Maxime. Merci de me rappeler. Donc, par rapport à votre mail, moi je suis OK, il n'y a pas de problème pour faire avancer les choses. D'accord. Ouais, j'ai compris. Donc déjà, premièrement, on peut lancer, donc comment ça se passe, on fait passer le RIB. Oui. 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 Ouais. D'accord. Et Quentin sera là, toute l'équipe sera là pour... Ok. Oui, oui, oui. Oui, oui. D'accord, ok. D'accord. Ok. Donc ça sera pour la plâtrerie. Est-ce qu'on a... Et concernant, parce que vous avez tout le lot peinture et tout ça. D'accord. Bon. Et j'ai pas vu les blocs portes. D'accord. Mais on ferait le même principe sur les blocs portes. Ou pas. Parce que faut mettre les cloisons. Bon, déjà. À la limite, vous mettez des blocs portes, c'est des portes pleines, hein. Des portes pleines. Ouais. D'accord. Parfait. Parfait. Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Au revoir. Bon, c'est pas... Après, ça arrive, c'est la vie de... Voilà. C'est la vie d'une entreprise. Ça va être compliqué pour vous aussi, je suppose. Voilà. Bon. Ah ouais. Ouais. Ok. Super. Ok, super. Merci.
These parts are facing. Actually, only some of them are allowed, and there is also change the port for the server and everything.
Some sort of web page.
The ticket will save 5 when iMac sends it. But I
How much effort?
This presentation's got a video with some audio in it. Are you taking that from the HDMI, or
Yes.
should I just hold the microphone close to the...
It should. I mean, it's all gone through the HDMI. Okay.
Okay, cool.
You know, 'cause
So I just need to make sure the audio output's set to the HDMI.
Yeah. It should default to that. Well, you know how it is. When you've messed
I'll
around
check
with
it,
it.
I'll check it. Thank you.
Oh no, not backwards. I've never seen that. So it's so high at the tide that it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Just because, like, I know it's an open source community, but when you do sort of service with enterprises and so on, yeah. 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 The pain, yeah, a lot, yeah. 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 Yeah.
Alan, there is still 10 people missing for me. Because at the reception there are 10 people which are not created, right?
Okay.
You know if some have said that they will not come?
I'd say we have enough at the moment, so we're going to get
So I
going.
will go and fetch again.
Okay.
The last one. Those that are coming after that, they will have to wait.
Okay. Exactly.
But at least the maximum of the people are there.
Yeah.
So you can start with, just for you to know that there are
Like I
people
should pay
on the list which
more.
are
It's what I think. And how do we pay?
now, for example, I don't know if he's coming.
He will be, yeah.
So he's not there yet, but I've asked the girl to say, because it's quick the registration, so, but I've said don't call me for one person, you call me when there is a whole meeting.
Okay.
You agree? Or?
They do cut like mine.
I try to do the best.
I know, I
You
understand.
have to, you gave rules, so you have to follow the rules. In camp, you have to follow some rules.
I know, but you know how it is.
Yeah.
You know?
I will come anyway to this afternoon.
Yeah.
After 3, I will break.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, you can always ping me to sort of, even though I'm not officially.
If you are there, if you see some people, they send you a message that there is someone at the reception. Just send me. I will. On WhatsApp, you say there is someone.
Okay.
Perhaps tell to those which are not arrived to ping you when they are there. But
Yeah.
I mean, for me, if I have to go every meeting, it's I will try to group.
Yeah.
But if you ping me to say there is someone since 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just tell me and I go and fetch it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Agreed.
Everything working? And so
Everything's
on?
working,
The
you were
mics,
about to
the
get
mics, I've checked, they are working.
Yep. We've got the mics all set up, so get things speed
Even
up.
it works.
Yes. Yep.
And just ping me if you have a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get going, guys. I want to try and always the day 2 stuff. Tends to be a little slow, so I would now. Well, first of all, I hope everybody enjoyed their evening. It was quite unusual toilets in terms of the artwork and the chaise longue that was in there. I walked in and there was a lady there. I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong toilet. And then she pointed to the room I should be going to. But anyway, let's move on. So I would like to introduce Abhinav. Abhinav we've known, wow, over a decade now. It was back in Mobile World Congress when we used to attend that event. We had a chat. So I'm really excited to have him to present around fraud in the contact center. So without further ado, because we're lagging, over to you, Abhinav.
All right. Just check this. Thank you, Alan. All right, maybe dive right in. My name is Abhinav, as Alan said. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Smart Numbers. And Smart Numbers is an organization which helps contact centers detect fraud and authenticate callers in real time. So I thought about today and the audience that we have. So we have an audience which is, knows their technology, knows telecom, knows regulation. So what could I talk about? And I thought the best thing I could talk about is what we've learned from our customers in the fraud space and in the contact center space. So, and how these three things, technology, telecom, and regulation come together to help us address this problem. So the first thing maybe that I can talk about is the size of the problem. So if you look at fraud today, there's a number of data points that come from a lot of different places. UK has a company called, a forum called UK Finance, which publishes some stats. And UK Finance's members are the ones who are reporting these stats. And about 50 of the top sort of financial organizations in the UK are losing about 1.2 billion within, due to fraud. Go over the pond to the US side, and you've got a different sort of reporting mechanism by FTC, which is the Consumer Sentinel Network. And in there, you have about 8.8 billion reported lost by consumers. Now, these numbers are probably underreported and smaller than what the actual cost of fraud is. There's some research that the UK government did recently this year, and they have a fraud strategy, and the numbers are much bigger. So you've got 1.2 billion there, but in reality, it goes up to 7 billion as cost to the economy. If you think about how fraudsters go about and actually get into committing this fraud and what their tactics are, we see a lot of different types of frauds. So, iPhone stolen, people's pensions stolen, credit card fraud, romance scams, money stolen from people on dating sites. But overall, generally, there's sort of a pattern on how fraudsters work, and there's they do sort of go through these high-level 4 steps. And the first step is harvesting data, and that's we all know about data breaches and loss of data across the world as more data breaches happen. And the first step is harvesting this data, and that would be either through phishing or through going into the dark web and buying some data. The second step then they go into is reconnaissance, and reconnaissance is just to augment that data, to get more information on data. So it might be you've got some credit card numbers, and now you want to check whether these are valid. You want to check what are the balance on these credit card numbers. Are these high net worth credit card numbers worth stealing? Should you be paying $10 for them on the dark web or $20 for them? And then you go on to the next step where the fraudster will actually go into what we call preparation for actual cash out. And in the preparation stage, they would do stuff like take over their account, reset credentials, use the information that they have to prepare for the actual cash out event. And finally, the last step would be monetization, where they actually cash out, and ultimately this is either an iPhone 15 Pro today in their hand, or it's £10,000 stolen from someone's bank account. So it could be any form of it, but overall that's the overall framework that they use, that we've mapped out. So how does the contact center relate to this? When we talk to our customers, a lot of them focus on the cash out part, the last part, where if I'm on the contact center, has someone made a payment or stolen some money on the phone while in the contact center? And working with customers over the years and looking at feedback data, what we've realized is there's a lot of value and a lot of hidden fraud before the cash out even happens. And that's down to reconnaissance and harvesting stages within the contact center. And what happens is these are what we call enabling stages for the cash out. And the cash out might happen on the contact center, but the cash out might happen somewhere else on another channel. So it might happen on web, it might happen on mobile. So putting it in the contact center perspective, this is the same sort of 4 stages. Data harvesting is not generally in the contact center. we see both reconnaissance and preparation happening within the contact center, and that's down to people testing, fraudsters dialing in through automated mechanisms, testing multiple date of births on an account. So you dial into a credit card account, first question asked is, what's the date of birth? And you see 01, 08, 02, 08, and people are just going through that and augmenting that data in there. And then socially engineering agents, or actually using the IVR to reset credentials, change the phone number on the account so that later when the one-time password is sent, it's sent to the fraudster's phone number rather than to the actual phone number of the genuine customer. And then finally the execution, you've got cash out. Like I said, some of it happens in contact center, but that's this much, and most of it actually correlates to cash out on the digital channel, digital meaning web or mobile, and you've got all sorts of things that happen there. You've got romance scams. If you don't know what romance scam is quite a big thing right now in US and in the UK, and it's where fraudsters actually end up having a fake romantic relationship with the victim online. And the victim, believe me or not, even if they know the fraudster just for about 2 weeks, never having met them, would send them tens of thousands of pounds. And they're quite manipulative, and it's you think that you couldn't fall a victim of, some of your family or friends couldn't fall a victim to this, but actually when you look at the stats and people who fall victim, they are quite rational people, and these fraudsters are quite manipulative. I like one of our customers. I've put in my name in, but there are teams who are tackling this. Sorry, I shouldn't reveal the name. So if you look at what we did is over the last year, for the last 12 months, we collected some stats on what is the makeup of this fraud. We get a lot of feedback data from our customers. So we are working with some of the largest banks in the UK, and we have very high coverage within the UK. And with that, we see a lot of feedback data on what we've reported as a high risk call. Is that actually transformed into fraud or not? What we've reported as a genuine call, did that turn out to be spoofed or not? And based on that, we've collated that data and published a report. You get a QR code in the end. You won't have to fill a form or anything, but you can just download it later. But what we've seen is 1 in 500 calls are suspicious coming into a contact center. Some of them into the IVR, some get to the agent, but a lot, if you have a good self-serve IVR, there's a lot of data leakage in the IVR. This is the breakdown that we see on how we are able to detect fraud, and I'll walk you through it a little bit. This is my main slide, so I should definitely walk through it slowly. The first part is, this is just sort of going through how we are detecting this fraud and how customers are protecting themselves. And the first part is basically maintaining a watch list of numbers that you know about. We call these fraudsters frequent flyers. They are not too clever. They use the same number. They come in again and again, but they are depending on weak technology, weak processes. So we've talked to some quite big brand contact centers where actually every day in the morning, a group of agents on a floor will write some number on a post-it note and stick it on their screens. And when the fraudster changes it in 2 weeks, they update the post-it note and stick it on the screen. So, with that sort of thing, just improving the technology and process for maintaining a watch list, very simple, they could protect themselves. But the technology is so poor generally in the contact centers that it's difficult for them to even do that. The second list is, slightly more clever. So if you look at the second one, about 25% of the calls come from this category. And these are basically fraudsters known to the organization, but they are withholding their CLI or anonymizing their number. So they're not presenting their CLI. Now, I know in the US, you still, at the contact center layer, you still see it. If you're calling into a toll-free number, even if you withhold your CLI, you still see it. In UK and other countries, you don't. But if you work with your carrier, they're generally, if our customers or these end customers work with their carrier or work with the telco, there's generally regulations for preventing fraud which allow you to actually stop this category as well. And we help our customers with this category as well and help block calls from known fraudsters who are anonymizing their CLI. The third one we have is quite important. We've seen great value here, actually, because every new customer that joins us or starts using the product adds immense value to everyone who's already there. And that's sort of watch lists of other customers and fraudsters that are known to other customers that you're not aware of. As soon as they land on the platform, in real time, you get protected from those. And you'll see the impact of this. This is, although it says 17% of the calls are from this category, what we've seen is at least 52% of the fraudsters. So we've collated numbers, MOs, what they do, how they do it, the nicknames of fraudsters, but about 52% of them attack more than one organization. So when you know that there's immense value as an organization to benefit from that data here. And finally, the topic that everyone talked about yesterday, there's a bit of AI, there's a bit of ML, but a lot of the fraud can only be detected by using technology like AI. And what we do is, at the moment, we look at signaling data, we look at the phone number, we look at the age of the number, we look at which operators they're coming from. You feed that all into a model, and you get a risk-based analysis based on that. It goes from sort of green, amber, red, and the red part is where the fraud happens. And the big thing here is we get a lot of feedback data from our customers on both genuines and fraud. So unlike some call labeling services we have in the US, which there's a lot of false positives, it's not the same thing. It's very specific to an industry, it's very specific to a customer, it's very well-trained models rather than sort of anomaly detection. There are two sort of main pillars on how we talk about what you can do to tackle fraud with customers. One is sharing intelligence. Now, this is not sharing intelligence within two organizations. That's really important. As I said, 52% of fraudsters attack multiple organizations. And it's very difficult to do it in real time and enabling that in real time. It's also sharing intelligence within systems internally. You wouldn't believe how disconnected systems are within the contact center. So you've got fraud detection systems for plastics channel, fraud detection system for non-plastic, or fraud detection for someone coming on the web, mobile, and these systems don't talk to each other. And the big thing here is contact center as a channel is completely missing from most fraud detection systems. So the risk signals that come in from contact center don't actually go in. And when you look at retail, insurance, finance, wherever you go, wherever there's money involved, there's a fraud detection system of some sort that they have internally, which is being used. And it is missing signals from the contact center. So what we do is we bring those signals into the fraud detection platform and give them a holistic picture, which is where sharing intelligence within internal platforms is quite important. And at the start here, lots of stats. 26 calls we've seen on average before a cash out event happens. We find out about the cash out event because our customers report them to us, but we know the high risk calls, how they've gone onto the account before the actual cash out has happened. The second bit is using carrier data and AI. I won't sort of go into again on this point, but this is essentially where we can support customers better with the knowledge from telecoms, with the knowledge from technology, and with the knowledge from sort of regulatory aspects. And I'll sort of go slightly into the regulatory aspects as well and what we're doing there. So if you look at the fraud and regulatory landscape in the UK, there's a number of things that are happening. UK is looking at stir shaken. I think UK is still probably going to be 5 to 7 years behind where US is, and I don't think US is in a good place. So but we are looking at it. It's something that is in the government strategy. Ofcom's looking at it. The second thing is the UK government has a fraud strategy, which is going into a lot of different things right now. This was also launched this year. And the third one is the members coming together to fight fraud together as part of UK finance. But that's UK, but if you look at other countries, it's very much similar. So everyone's doing the same-ish things if you look at them. And I know the person who was presenting from Caller ID Reputation yesterday talked about DNO list and a number of these things. But US did do not originate lists, UK does it now. And DNO list, if people don't know how fraudsters use it and why it's done, it's basically it's the number at the back of your card. And fraudsters, when they call the victims, they say, hey, look at the back of the card. I'm the bank, I'm calling you. And the DNO list is about making that number unavailable for calling, because that number requires calls coming in, but it doesn't need to be published and called out. So DNO list is fairly effective, although still, there are leaks in that. You've got protected or invalid numbers as well, where if you have unallocated ranges, invalid numbers, protected numbers, they should be used and should be blocked. So these are sort of not machine learning based interventions, not advanced technology interventions. These are quite basic interventions that the different countries are putting in. You got fixed CLI blocking, which UK is doing, Germany is doing, a number of other countries are doing. This is where local in-country CLIs are not allowed to come in from international routes. So if you have a German number coming in from an international route, it'll get blocked. So it's that sort of intervention. Same for the UK. I think mobile CLI blocking is also another thing Ireland is doing. I know Germany is doing, UK is doing as well. And in there are more challenges because they don't want to block people who are roaming. So there's technology challenges, but I think these interventions have worked a lot better than some of the more advanced interventions like call analytics in the network or stir shaking. Actually, I'm going to show you an example of one of these interventions in the UK and what we saw. So this is data from our platform. And when the fixed CLI blocking regulation or rule came in the UK, it was implemented in around July 2022. And we saw spoofing drop from where it was to less than a tenth of it. And the point here is actually regulations, technology, these keep changing. What you need to do from a fraud platform or from detecting fraud perspective is adapt to it. And what we'll see, or what we're seeing happening, or was predicted to happen is, less spoofing, more SIM swaps, more burner phones, different strategies. But fraudsters need to get on with their business. They need to earn their money. They'll do it somehow, and they'll move on to something else. So how do we then trust the CLI? And it's quite advantageous for customers in contact centers to be able to trust the CLI and to be able to base the call on that level of trust. And we come across this largely for authentication use cases where they want to trust the CLI. But there's some good and some bads here. The good thing is, now 80% plus calls are coming from mobiles nowadays. This is stats from the UK, but I looked at US and it's quite similar in there as well. There are regulatory gaps. So even though UK, for example, blocked international routes sending UK network CLIs, which is sort of the billing number, you can still send UK presentation CLIs from international routes, and they haven't blocked that yet, and that's next to come. So, there's always gaps in the regulation which allow fraudsters to do what they need to do. And finally, I'd say because of all of that, because of the regulatory gaps, because of the changing technology landscape, the best way to do it is with technology like AI, using it to actually adapt to the changing behavior. and to the changing landscape that's happening. Final slide, looking into the future. I think this is a bit marketing here, I would say, but I think we talk about where this is all going from a fraud perspective and a fraud detection perspective. And we see sort of three pillars again here. One is there's a possibility of stronger detection mechanisms. So as customers, there's a big move right now happening from customers from on-premise contact centers to cloud. So large banks are moving from, whatever they were on Avaya to Amazon Connect or to Genesis Cloud. And what that does is it gives you more data. IVR logs, as an example, are inaccessible when a bank's on premise. But when you go into the cloud, when you work with these cloud platforms, it's much easier to even access those IVR logs and bring that into your fraud detection mechanisms and bring that into your ML models. The other thing is audio. So audio becomes much more accessible in cloud platforms. Again, when you're on premise, there's privacy, there's all sorts of restrictions, which means that you can't easily consume audio. But as these customers are moving to cloud, audio is easier to consume. You don't have to go into complex, creating separate streams from an SBC and adding, 1,000 more licenses. What you can do is, just a Kinesis stream from Amazon Connect, and you've got it, and you can analyze it, and you can, do something with it. And the second thing is stronger collaboration. I think this is one bit that I feel Smart Numbers is excelling at, and a lot of other people don't do, which is we started out as a native cloud platform, and what happened is we were naturally a consortium. Like you have to opt out of the consortium, you're in the consortium. Whereas most of the platforms that started before us started on premise. And so building a consortium, building shared intelligence is very difficult for them. And what we've seen come out of that is actually new customers. What happens is you've got a fraudster that's been detected with one customer. They see that in real time that it's the same fraudster has attacked two other customers, and they want to talk to them. They want to get on the phone with them. So we started out sort of aiding these phone calls. So we have phone calls. We are creating collaboration between these customers. They're getting on the phone. They're talking to each other. But at the same time, they pull in other people who are not our customers on those calls, and then they, in turn, in the longer term, become our customers. But what we're trying to do is, we can't scale that. We can't scale arranging phone calls for customers. So what we're trying to do is building that collaboration within the platform and actually aiding that communication within the platform itself. Finally, I had a point earlier about a lot of new APIs coming out from the mobile networks. Finally, after a long time, and there's some sort of consistency among them now. So like people like Telesign are doing, aggregating it, getting some consistency in it, and sharing it out. And that allows for, or the use cases we've used it for, it allows for more holistic investigations by our fraud teams. So if you've got, I'll give an example works best, a real example. We've got, we tried to use this IMEI lookup API, which looks up a device ID for a phone number in real time for all fraudulent calls that were coming into a customer. And previously, what we thought was 50 different fraudsters with 50 different numbers. We figured out it's actually 20 fraudsters. They're just changing the same every 2 weeks. They're using the same device. And by the way, iPhones are the most common devices for fraudsters. So they're not going to replace them anytime soon. And iPhone 7 seems to be the preferred device as well. So anyway, that's my presentation. Ending on that, you can all download this report, which will give you a bit more detail into the numbers. And thank you. Any questions?
That was excellent, Adam. Great in terms of the stats, different methods and how they perform, but always, it's a whack-a-mole game.
It is,
You're always
it is.
going to move on. So any questions for Arnav, Karel?
So you were talking about collaboration and mostly on the, let's say, B2B side. But do you see any correlation between the frauds that you see here and all the robocalls and all, so the calls going out to consumers, trying to get their info, etc. So, you know, do they use the same tactics and same numbers? So could there be some collaboration there also interesting?
Yeah. So yeah, a big focus in UK we call it authorized push payment scams, and a lot of the focus there is fraudsters calling consumers, not and at some stage that's where they're manipulating consumers and doing something. And there's a number of POCs we are running, but I can give you a few examples again to bring it to life. So one of the things was being we didn't run, but some of our customers have run with this mobile identity API. There's you can check whether a consumer is on the phone or not by looking up their number, right, through the API. And mobile operators in the UK expose this capability. You can check the A party, B party, incoming, outgoing as well. And there was a proof of concept ran where when a large payment happens from an account, the bank would trigger this API and check whether the customer was on a phone or not. And the correlation here is when a scam happens, a push payment with a scam happens, where a consumer is being manipulated to make a payment, the way they do that is they're on the phone with the consumer. So what the bank is doing is they are looking for large payments, and if there's a large payment from a consumer, they would call this API and check whether they're on the phone or not. And if they're on the phone, they'll block the payment and then call the consumer back. So there's stuff like that that's interesting and happens, which you won't figure out, you know, does that make sense? But it apparently does. There's a lot of false positives on there, so, you know, it didn't work. There's another initiative, much like what some of the apps are doing, Truecaller and stuff. Some of the banks are trying to do similar things where we're working on a POC with a bank where we embed some logic where a lot of this consortium data is exposed into the app. So if someone's calling them, calling a customer who has the mobile banking app on their phone, you can highlight if it's a known fraudster, and they get a warning. So those are the sort of things that are happening in the industry, for sure.
Excellent, that was great. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we have Guillaume. Oh, move that out of the way. It's the, there you go. This is right over your face.
Hello.
Hey, okay, so given all the shifting we had to do yesterday, Guillaume ended up being pushed to today because Pierre had to drop out at the last minute. So, Guillaume, you're going to be presenting on a couple of topics, but the first, I think most interesting, is 2FA is almost dead, and we're going to hear later from Dan Jenkins around passkeys, which I use all the time. It's great, it's easy,
yes.
It's quick. So anyway, I will hand over to you, Guillaume, and you only got, I think, 25 minutes, so I know you had longer yesterday, but just squeeze it up, okay?
I'm ready to get on board and quickly do this. No worries. So can you hear me? First thing first, can you hear me all? Yes?
Yeah, clear.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear, fantastic. So, I hope that everything goes well in Paris. So, I'm in Belgium today. Sorry for not attending in person, but I'm very glad still to present, to be with you guys today. 2FA is dead, or almost, and what's next, right? So maybe just to give some context there, it's just to have a sign of what's happening. we had COVID that was unprecedented for the last 2 years, right, 2020 to 22. And we have seen a few different things happening during COVID when it comes to digital identity. First, you have a big shift from offline to online activities. What does it mean? It means that how we present ourselves online is different when we present ourselves offline. We just don't present an ID card like that and just we are accepted on the platform. So what happened is that we had a digitalization of the customers that accelerated by 3 to 4 years. That's according to McKinsey. I don't think you need to be analyst, a company to understand that, but definitely we have seen a big shift and COVID has accelerated that. We have seen also a huge increase in global e-commerce transaction. It increased by 20% compared to the previous years, and we have seen it continues. I have new figures there that shows it's still really growing, and people are really adapting to do their shopping online. And then, very interestingly, the fraud before 2020 and 2021 was really geared towards actually bots. We have a lot of different type of attack, but all these attacks were usually bots driven, right, script and so on. And the fraud during the pandemic and still now started to actually be human driven. And human driven is complicated to detect. Human driven fraud is actually not easy it's unpredictable, it's not easy to catch, because we are some very weird creature when it comes to doing some frauds. So this has been really a big shift also in how to apprehend fraud and how to deal with it. Talking about fraud, if you look at the numbers that companies, enterprise, government are losing every year, right, and towards frauds, I just take just one number: cybercrime. Just cybercrime overall, it's a 7 trillion. I would say call it total addressable market of people working in fraud, but this is a loss of $7 trillion in 22. $7 trillion, it puts it at the first largest country in the world if you look from a GDP perspective. That alone is memorable. But if you look closely in this $7 trillion, so these cybercrimes include data breach, ransomware, they include a lot of different things. But if you just look more closely to identity fraud, which is, for example, account takeover, which is one of the most popular kind of attack, that would be among the top 100 country in terms of GDP. We're talking about a $50 billion market there. And what are we doing, right, as professionals, as companies and enterprise working in that domain? We're still relying on SMS two-factor authentication, push emails, and voice PIN. That's what it is. So we have a $50 billion problem, and we are relying on actually a 30 years old technology. I think there is something broken there. I mean, and again, I've been in the two-factor authentication market for a very long time in mobile identity, and you'll see, I'm not just saying that SMS is bad. I think there is a lot of good things to happen with SMS, but I think from a digital identity perspective and authentication perspective on the market, there is something broken. But why did we pick first the SMS OTP instead of more robust solutions? I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves, right? Why SMS? I think SMS has done a great job over the last few years, right? And let's not be just dark about it. I think the coverage, right? I think the coverage has been really driven, that has driven the adoption of SMS. Why? Because you have big companies like the Microsoft and Facebook of the world. What's needed is just ubiquity. And this that is device agnostic. I have a solution in the US. I want to replicate that in Canada, in UK, in Australia, everywhere in the world. And this is the same thing, right? So I need coverage, I need also ubiquity in how it will interact with the users. I want the same kind of interaction for all my users across the world. And so that's where SMS has been a great tool and a fantastic vessel for that. Also, SMS is super convenient. People are reading SMS super fast. I mean, I'm very late in opening my emails, really late. But SMS, I know that I'm always opening my SMS, like within a few minutes. And this is also what plays a role on why not email. But email is not necessarily another solution we want to go through, right? But that's one of the reasons SMS has been adopted, among others. And then it creates strong habits, right? With standard protocol and so on, but also creating strong habits. And it's funny because for the last 5 to 10 years even, I've seen how do we get rid of SMS OTP? How do we get rid of it, right? Why should we rely on SMS OTP? And you think that it's gonna disappear the next day. But no, because people are really attached to the SMS two-factor authentication. They like it. But there is a but, right? Yeah, SMS is not all just glamorous like that. There is a lot of things that are happening in terms of fraud. We have seen SIM swapping. This is just in the US alone. Last year was $100 million problem, and this is just the US. You have interception, that is also another type of attack. We see smishing, the lack of encryption is also something worrying. Very dark and gray area, I would say, gray areas when it comes to international regulatory prices. So you have seen over the last years some prices multiplied by 3, by 4, 5, just for no reason, just because mobile operators decided it was a good time to get additional revenue. So that altogether, and I'm not even talking about artificial inflation, traffic, and so on, that is being a burden on SMS OTP and created a lot, like a parallel market where aggregators are just getting a lot of money out of account that doesn't exist. And so we are like, today I think in 2022, 2023, getting out of the pandemic, seeing like there is massive adoption, digitalization of the world, coming from offline to online. There is more and more drivers for not necessarily saying goodbye for good to SMS OTP, but starting to shifting to new models, right? And that's important. That's really important. And these drivers for adoption, right, of new channel of authentication and identity are that now you're going to have 5 billion users that can have access to mobile internet. I think just in 2025, just 5 billion people will be connected all the time. And that's really something interesting from that perspective. It means that our device isn't just becoming an extension of ourselves for doing anything. And almost every single adult human on Earth will have the potential to get access to online services. The mobile usage growth is also increasing. Of course, the more people connected, the more usage growth you have. Payment has been increasing, and I understand that you guys, mobile payment has been certainly a topic you talk about. I'm not certainly the most qualified person to talk about it, but this is definitely something that is happening right now, right? People are paying. I can tell you, I have a 70-year-old mom here in Belgium. She's doing her payment with PayPal, with some application from a banking application. I'm amazed, would say, by it. It's incredible. So everybody in the population is starting to really go through the mobile payment things. It's growing, so it's undeniable. Breaches have been also growing a lot. And that has been really worrying, and from that perspective, we need to really pay attention from that, because we have all our information that there on the net. If I remember well, some numbers, not just to throw things there, but we had around 27 billion data breaches and data available on the darknet at the time we speak. 27 billion type of data. So it can be your name, your first name, last name, your phone number, your IP address, your date of birth, lot of things are circulating over there. We don't want to expose too much things there. And increasing scam, that's interesting. Between 2020 and 2022, 95% increase in scam. Most of these scam, you might have received this type of call. Do you know about COVID relief? And now you can get actually $20,000 back. This is the kind of scam you see, but there's a lot of other different scam and very human geared, not bot gear as I was mentioning earlier. And some underlying driver are just like regulatory framework, right? We are talking about GDPR. I was mentioning the data breaches and 27 billion type of data out there on the dark net. But if you don't share your data cannot be on the darknet. So you have regulatory framework that protect these data, that prevent them to be out in the wild, and you have Global Data Privacy Act. There is India that is going through that direction. There's also some countries like in Indonesia. If you look at things like in Brazil, Latin America, they already passed the equivalent of GDPR. So there was a lot of things happening, and that actually are the drivers to change and just getting away from the SMS two-factor authentication. Oh, sorry, they've been enthusiastic on that one, my click. So what are the other solutions there? Before we talk about the solution, there is first thing, you don't have like ubiquity like for everything. You need to have a solution, you have to sign up, and the sign in. The sign up is really just, I'm a brand, online brand, you are a user, I don't know you. I have no idea of who you are. We need to create this first link, first bound together and that trust. And so this is what sign up is. Versus the signing, okay, are you still the same person? Yes, fantastic. We keep maintaining that trust between the two of us. So at the sign up, you have a few things that emerge over the last few years, like document verification. Scan has been there for a little while, and it's improving. I have seen in Brazil that in less than 5 to 10 seconds, they can get access to a government database, for example, get you on board, and just have fantastic result with that. So social media integration, that's a funny one. I hate that one, to be fairly honest. But when you want actually to sign on a new e-commerce, let's say, and to say you can use your Facebook account or your Twitter, your Meta and your X account. And actually, these guys, how do they do the onboarding with you? SMS 2FA. So actually, there is something broken there. You have the feeling you get something that is secure. You have this feeling this is great, but it's not, because at the end, the social media have onboarded you with the wrong tools. Progressive profiling is also a new method you see more and more, where you don't ask too much information in the early steps, but you start to, once someone wants to do more interaction on your platform, this is where you start to get and collect more and more information from the user. And then you have very interesting things happening in initiative around decentralized identities, right, around blockchain. So this is definitely, there are things that are coming on board that is really interesting. And then on the signing, you have the extension of the few things we talked. There is the biometric authentication, single sign-on, passkeys, and I think I'm very bullish and I really love what's happening around passkeys. Another thing is header enrichment. There's been a bit around for a little while has been a bit complex to implement and to make it also like an ecosystem as the SMS has been driving. So there is good things out there, but there is things that need to, as I said, you need first to create trust, and then you need to maintain it. And there are different tools out there for that. Just doing a quick check on the timing. Alan, you still good?
Yeah, you're still good.
Fantastic. So, when it comes to programmable communication, we have seen that a lot of the companies out there have been really thriving and doing the business through a lot of voice and SMS two-factor authentication. So it's not going to disappear overnight, but we know also we need to change these methods of authentication and onboarding and signing and so on. So what should we do, right? Let's not reinvent the wheel. We have, as the CPaaS communities, they have access to phone numbers. And phone numbers has this specificity that I really like. The phone numbers lives in two worlds, to the contrary of a lot of other identifiers there. What I mean by that is that when it comes to data, you have two types of data. You have the data that you can find offline, right? What I call the physical world. And then you have the data you can find in the online world. So in the offline world, you can have your name, your date of birth, your address, right? Physical location. This is the offline world. And then you have the online world. In the online world, you have the email, your IP address, your device IDs, your cookies, your browsers, so many other things there, right? And the phone numbers is so specific that actually it lives in both worlds. You have not a lot of identifiers out there that can live in both worlds. And so this is why the phone numbers, and because of CPaaS, we've seen the phone numbers is really critical from that perspective. And that's an interesting one. So in our journey to learn about how to rethink about authentication, onboarding, and so on, there is this concept of building reusable digital identity, right? And making sure you can reuse that identity and create and tokenize identities. And so starting with phone numbers is a really good way to do that. And that's where CPaaS has a lot of opportunities, because they actually, over the last few years, they've been managing a lot of phone numbers across, and they have a database that is really powerful from that perspective. So again, you have the phone numbers that can become the main identifiers because of its ubiquity, stability. You don't change the phone numbers, all the time. The personal type, thanks to the phone number, I can have very accurate offline information of a user, but also their habits, online habits. And it's a gateway to expansion, because again, I'm not really just saying, oh, we're going to only use the phone numbers to identify someone. No, but that's a perfect way to tie it to other identifiers. So I call it the gateway to expansion to other to other identifiers. So you can append some other identifiers like an email, an IP address, and device, for example. And that makes it really a good tool and vessel to increase and broaden the phone numbers fingerprint. Sorry for that. Just the path forward. So for me, starting with the phone numbers for CPaaS and for building new identity product is really the key. And then you can start to append additional identifiers, and this is where you actually create value to your platform. We can see a few quick elements. You have some authoritative elements, right? Like the PII, or like your social security numbers, which is an ID numbers. In the US, you have some public records, like also financial liens, you have your passport, driving license. different things also covered. I will not go through every single one of them, but this is where telcos can definitely help. And with your phone numbers, you can get access to these elements and start to really create a digital identity around the phone numbers and append all this information in a one single place. And that's really what matters today. It's really how can I conveniently identify someone through just one identifiers. I don't need to do document scanning. I don't need to do some complex biometrics things just for the onboarding. I don't need to have things that just do not make sense for the end user. Just want to keep some things simple. And this is where you have a lot of opportunities to append all of these things, and where telco can help with all these authoritative and contextual data elements. And just one thing, because we are talking about programmable communication, and I know there's some talk right after on passkeys, and I think there is opportunities for CPaaS and going through the passkeys environment, but there is also the header enrichment that is eventually a low-hanging fruit for the CPaaS. And what has been missing on the header enrichment over the last few years was really to have the same ecosystem that SMS A2P has benefited from. So this is about education, this is about making sure that the customers are aware of the opportunity, but before even the customers, is that to create that really dynamic ecosystem of vendors and CPaaS providers that can deal with actually header enrichment. We've seen Twilio that moved there with the acquisition of Boku. We have companies like TeleSign also very active there, and you have many others on the market. It's just a couple of names, right? And this is where you see a lot of opportunities also to do the header enrichment. Is header enrichment actually a silver bullet against all fraud? Not necessarily, it's not. But what I believe, it's still a good step forward. And why that? Because actually for CPaaS in the future, it's not that you're gonna just offer SMS and voice pay, right? That's not the only thing. You need to acquire some level of orchestration where your customers can just do sign up, signing, you can change the passwords, you can do some account changes, and you have just actually a pool of different tools that can help them to do that. And at the center of that, you have the phone number. And that's what is super important for the CPaaS, is to move from the traditional two-factor authentication to a much more orchestrated and layered way of building digital identity. Any question?
Excellent, thank you so much, Guillaume. Applause, please. So we have your contact details there. Because of time, because we're getting long on the agenda, what I'd say is again, thank you so much. And your details are there so people can ask questions, but that was a great summary. Thank you so much, Guillaume.
Thank you, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Enjoy the rest.
Okay, Stuart.
morning, everyone. I'm going to start with a show of hands, if we can. Who in the room actually has an Android device? Okay. And of those Android users, how many of you have ever received or sent an RCS message? Okay, that's not too bad. Don't usually get as good a response to that question, so that's great. I think the reason I'm here today is partly because of this guy. I think it's safe to say that Dean's not a huge fan of RCS. It's a shame, isn't it? I mean, I didn't realise actually that so many of you were friends of this guy. This is a slide I've used a few times, but I mean, Dean's actually not wrong. RCS in its original perceived format is dead. Okay. The idea that mobile operators are going to deploy RCS infrastructure, bolt it in front of their IMS stack, and deliver RCS to users that way, dead, gone, buried. He's not wrong. But this guy is also not wrong. Okay. RCS is not dead. And the reason it's not dead is all because of Google. Google acquired a company called Jive Mobile in 2015. And there was a release of Android Lollipop 5.1 2015 as well. It's the first time that RCS got embedded into the stack. So with this sort of true client-server approach that Google have brought with Android, with Jive Mobile, we've got a viable RCS ecosystem now. And this is really what's fueling RCS, is B2B RCS. So it's a screenshot of a conversation I had with my son on my Android device. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, they're all tagged now as being RCS messages. So anyone on Android speaking to Android, typically, as long as they're configured correctly, is using RCS today. In the native messaging app, IP-based channel, rich media, it has suggested replies, some nice cool features. It's better than SMS. That's the point. Fully end-to-end encrypted as well now. It's free to use. I've actually met people from mobile operators with Android devices who didn't realise they were using RCS. But it's there, it's being used. And a recent change from Google is users now opted in by default. So formerly users had to find the settings, opt themselves in for RCS. But now they're opted in by default. So we're expecting numbers to grow. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. It is Android only, so you can say goodbye to Apple. But as we all know, of course, Android is the dominant handset OS. Obviously, different analysts disagree about the number of devices on them globally deployed today, but I think we're talking about sort of 4.8 billion devices out there which are potentially available to access RCS. It's not a small market by any means. The reason I'm here with my Cinch logo on my back talking about RCS is because there's an A2P RCS play. It's called RCS Business Messages, or RBM. It leverages the fact that there's a P2P channel that enables Google to offer an A2P channel sitting on top of that. But it's been deployed, unlike SMS, where there's very little difference between an A2P SMS and a P2P SMS. With RCS, it's completely different user flow, completely different look and feel to the client. This is one I mocked up during yesterday's session, showing how easy it is to put together, but it uses the same, so messages are sent, received in the same messaging inbox as SMS messages. It's fully IP-based.
Half an hour late. I mean, it's going
choice of rich media, we can do all kinds of things which I'll show you in a second. Every single sender agent is customized for the customer that's being used for. So every single sender agent has logos, it's got banner images, taglines, etc., etc. Crucially, it's actually verified. So when you click on the little checkmark icon, you'll either see it's verified by your operator or you'll see it's verified by Google. This gives the user assurance that they're speaking to who they think they're speaking to or they're hearing from. Google have got spam protection in play, so this is not end-to-end encrypted. It's encrypted from us to Google and then encrypted from Google to the user. But Google sits in the middle and monitor the content to make sure that users are not being unfairly spammed or there's fraudulent content going through. I'll let Google themselves talk about how they do that. But also crucially for the industry, we have real delivery receipts and red notifications. It's really interesting to see Guillaume a second ago put up that 98% SMS statistic that we all know to be true. I don't think it's actually possible to measure when an SMS message is read. So I'm not entirely sure that we should still be using that statistic. Nevertheless, A2P RCS, just like a regular A2P SMS message, free to receive and free to reply to. So this is what RCS looks like when it's done correctly. Just a little video demo here of a campaign that our team here in Paris put together for a company called Picard. Picard are a frozen food company. You can also buy their products in the UK, which is nice. And as you can see, this is a full sort of chatbot type experience. We're leading customers down through a purchasing flow. You know, what kind of menus are they interested in? How much money do they want to spend? You can see that there's some rich images here, and carousels that can scroll left and right, allowing users to look at and choose what they want to do. Come on, thank you. And these kind of campaigns deliver fantastic results for our customers. So this is not a marketing pitch, but just to give you a feel for this, you know, we get a 3 times open rate when we do an A/B test on RCS versus what we call rich SMS here in France. Rich SMS is an SMS with a link. When you click on the link, it leads you to a similar experience. But 3 times as many people open and engage with the RCS. 42% more follow the flow all the way down to the very end. And we see, you know, real-time revenue results for our customers at the end. So even though there's only a sort of a 33% market share of RCS versus non-RCS devices here in France, you know, it's significantly outperforming what we're getting for marketing than we could achieve with SMS. So with RCS, there are 3 message types. This is quite important, and I'll explain in a second why. First one is called basic. It's intended to complement SMS. It effectively looks like an SMS. It's up to 160 characters, it's text only, there's no media, very, very simple. And what Google are doing at the moment is working with the mobile operators to have this charged at the same price to the aggregators as an SMS message. So that allows us to use this for SMS type use cases. The next one is called a single message. It's intended to be an MT only. Typically these are used to drive users to a web store. So, you know, sale now on, here's our latest items, click here, come to our store and complete your purchase online. Interestingly, they kind of tag the pricing of this to SMS itself. So typically 1.4 to 1.6 times the cost of an A2P SMS. And then a conversation, which is the demo that I just showed, which, because you've got a number of messages flowing backwards and forwards, it's obviously not cost effective to do that on a per message basis. So a 24-hour session is created and messages are sent back and forwards in that 24 hours. Globally, this is what CenturyReach looks like today. We have a policy of connecting to, I didn't introduce myself, did I? But I'll come back to it. We have a policy of connecting to every single mobile operator where we can. And what I've shown in gold here is the countries where we have full reach. So connection to every single viable mobile operator. Obviously there are 1,001 operators, carriers in the US alone, but the big 3 are certainly covered. As you can see, there's significant white space, grey space, Middle East, a lot of Africa to be done, and Australasia. So I was going to take, obviously there are 3 players in the ecosystem, the operators, the enterprises, and the aggregators. I just wanted to pick up some highlights of what it looks like to each one of those 3 parties in the world of RCS. As far as the operators are concerned, yeah, they're very concerned about the threat of the so-called over-the-top channels. Very careful using that word with Dean still in mind, but there is a threat. You know, traffic is moving onto WhatsApp and other. You know, we heard from Uniphonic yesterday that WhatsApp is dominant in the Gulf, and also, you know, as SMS rates, MT rates are increasing, there's obviously some kind of dilution on the use as well, just through sort of sheer price elasticity. What Google are offering to the mobile operators is this kind of zero risk, zero investment approach. So Google will come along, they'll deploy their infrastructure. There's no need for the operators to go out and sign deals with Nokia or Ericsson and you know, as I said earlier, add this onto their IMS stack. and Google simply provides billing reports to the operators. So it's everything they need to actually monetize RCS. And it's low effort. They don't need to maintain this infrastructure either. All they have to do is approve sender agents to ensure that we get the little stamp that we saw a second ago on the sender. But of course, operators are a little bit nervous dealing with Google. Yes, they have to go out and sign an agreement with Google, but not all carriers, not all operators necessarily trust the world's largest search engine. From the aggregator's point of view, it's quite interesting. Google have replicated the A2P SMS model. So we are, as a company like Cinch, with a lot of global direct connect agreements with mobile operators, we can just add a simple contract amendment to add RCS onto our A2P termination. It's great for us, but it also enables us to cement our dominance in that space, which I know is something that Johnny was picking up on yesterday with those direct carrier agreements. Again, at Cinch, I'm wearing the badge, so I would mention that our connectivity, our RCS reach is available to anyone who wants to work with us. Time and money, we spent a lot of effort and time working with RCS, and it's only really now it's beginning to pay us back. So there's been a lot of investment gone in, not least in evangelism, people like myself travelling around the world talking about RCS. RCS is still a very manual process, and I'll spend a bit of time talking about that in a second. But also it's just another channel that we have to support. So, as a messaging aggregator, we grew up on the back of A2P SMS. We did a little bit in MMS, which is now obviously quite large in the US, but now we have to support WhatsApp, we have to support Twitter, we have to think about Facebook Messenger, Line, WeChat, the list just goes on and on, KakaoTalk. RCS is just another channel we have to think about, and none of these channels are as ubiquitous as SMS. So there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of investment, and a lot of big bets to be played. So just to spend a bit of time on the RCS pain points, kind of from an aggregator's perspective, but it actually affects the entire ecosystem. One of the biggest problems we have at the moment is all sender agents are actually set up manually. We have to log into a portal, we have to type into it, we have to copy and paste images into it. That doesn't scale brilliantly, but I would give a green check mark to Google. We're actually working with them on early access to programmable API that will enable us to do a lot of this work using APIs instead, which is obviously great. The next pain point is that Google is doing their best to protect their users. And one of the things that they do, two things they do in fact, are every single sender agent, every identity that we create has to be set a billing category and a use case category, and those are frozen. So once we set up a sender agent, we say, okay, we're going to use this one just for conversational use cases. We're just going to use this one for basic messages. We're just going to send text-based messages. Once that's set on that sender agent, we can't then suddenly start sending media. It just won't work. And in order to get that changed, we've actually got to open a support ticket and get Google to change it on the back end. So that is painful because that restricts our ability to move and change and do different things. Again, with SMS, you just send the text and no one really cares. Similar around the use case as well. So we have to specify if a sender agent is going to be used for a promotional or transactional basis, or maybe it's going to be used for both, in which case it's multi-use, or maybe it's going to be one-time passwords. But it can't be one-time passwords, it can't be set up for one-time passwords and then suddenly be used for a transactional message. So again, it's kind of restrictive and a little bit painful for us. We're so used to just setting up an SMS sender and using it for whatever we want. Sender agent approval is a nightmare and it takes forever. I get it, I really do get it. If Google are going to put their stamp on it and say we verify this sender, or the mobile operator is going to do likewise, they want to make sure that the sender agent is going to be used properly. But we have to demonstrate how the user opts in, what sender agent is going to be used for, how the user agent opts out, demonstrate the opt-out, provide videos. They like the agents to be able to log in themselves and then use the agent. It's an incredible amount of work goes into this, and this is all very, very manual. And then of course the operators get involved, they add paper forms on top, Excel sheets, Word documents. You know what it's like when the operators get crazy. Luckily, they're not charging yet. So I'm going to give this one a red cross. But finally, just to talk about the billing logic, because the billing logic is horrific. When the very model, we were signing a contract with one of the Vodafone properties for RCS termination, and they sent us their definition of the billing model. It was a 12-page PDF full of pictures. And when you get to the point where you have to create a rating model so you can bill your customers for messages and determine whether and if a session is established and how the rules of that session work in such a way to ensure that your billing reconciles with the operator you've got to pay for termination, it's a nightmare. But, green tick to Google, because Google provide all the billing to the operators, they're actually going to be providing Cinch and other aggregators our view of their billing records to the operators. So for the first time ever, we're going to have complete 100% reconciliation with the operators, which is fantastic for the industry. Very quickly, brand's view. What do they think about RCS? We've talked about this a little bit online, but typically the view is taken at the moment, because this is an operator messaging channel, if the user is opted in for SMS, if they've opted in for MMS, then brands can actually reuse that, and we don't need to get additional opt-in, and that is actually a really powerful part of the channel. There's a problem with predictability of costs. If I send a message on a conversational sender agent and nobody replies, it doesn't get billed as a conversation, it gets billed as a single message, which is cheaper. But if I want to send a single message on a conversational channel and somebody does reply, I'll be billed more than I think I am. So this unpredictability of costs is a bit of a problem for brands. It would be nice if there was a little bit more control, and that's some of the reason for the billing categories. But nevertheless, sometimes there can be unpredictable costs, usually to their favour, to be fair. Apple is always the big elephant in the room, and a lot of brands just can't see past the fact that this is not a ubiquitous channel. It doesn't work on Apple devices, it is Android only. But as what we see for the use case before, you know, when we do a strong RCS campaign, it really does deliver. Very quickly about Cinch's RCS journey, I thought it was interesting to put this in, because this is the same but different as the Uniphonic journey that we saw yesterday. So we started with an API. We still got our own public-facing API, which is still our specification. We're looking to standardise that and move on to the industry standard GSMA map specification, which is the only part of the GSMA RCS that lives on. But what we found is that our APIs, unlike some people in this room, a lot of people find APIs difficult to connect to, difficult to work with. So we actually set up a service layer first. Based here in Paris, our French team started building these campaigns for customers. And the campaign we saw earlier was built for our customer. They didn't invoke that themselves, we built that for them using our Cinch marketing team. They were using a lot of internal tools, you know, Node-RED flow builders and all kinds of bits and pieces. And then we thought, well, actually, if we need to use internal tools to build stuff for our customers, why don't we reverse that back and then offer self-service tools to our customers? And that's what we're currently doing. We've got a new campaign tool which customers are beginning to set up and run and send their own campaigns, primarily those single rich card type messages with call to action to the website. But what's new in town is this idea of converting SMS to RCS. Why would you bother? Because we can deliver the same SMS content over RCS. The users get the branded message, they get the trust of the verification, they know that the message really is bona fide, has come from where they think it is. Moreover, it kind of shows the world, the enterprise, the pathway that we're on, starting with improving SMS where we can, leaving SMS as SMS where we can't, and then moving on down to sort of conversational RCS and off we go. But there's another really, really good reason to convert SMS to RCS. I've called it the great Google incentive, but we've actually got some free termination. So if we can get free termination instead of paid for termination, it allows us to be more creative with the pricing that we can offer our customers. SMS is getting very, very expensive. And the more that operators, enterprises are using it, the more and more they're beginning to see that cost on their bottom line. So if we can do something with RCS to help them continue to use mobile as a channel, it helps us remain relevant, and it helps us drive messages in the ecosystem. So what I've shown on the map there is just all the countries where there's one or more operator we can actually reach free of cost. I don't think Google are necessarily going to keep this window open forever. I just heard about a rumour of another operator that's about to get closed down for free termination just before I came up here on stage. So it's closing fast, but it's certainly something that's helping us to drive things forward. So a couple more slides if I'm alright for time, Alan, but there are some threats out there in the RCS world. I thought it was worth bringing them up. First thing we saw was spam on RBM. So this happened in India, and actually there was no surprise here. It was hiding in plain sight. If you see the sender ID there, it says ads mania. Google opened up India for RCS. They opened it up free of cost, and there's nothing that the online advertising promotion world likes more than a free channel to be able to just go and send messages to whoever they want to. First thing that Google did when they picked up on this, literally from customer complaints on Twitter, was just to shut down all of India. Very draconian, shut down India, went away and figured out how to fix it, and they fixed it by basically just applying costs. Typically, when you apply costs and you shut down any path of getting around the back door, you can eliminate spam. So that's worked really, really well, and it's to Google's credit they did that. Next thing is RCS spam. And I'm very pleased to report that this screenshot came from my own handset. I woke up one Saturday morning and I had a spam message over RCS. This is going to be a challenge because this is a free channel. So you can go and buy a SIM card in the UK today, 99 pence, less than £1. You can connect your device over Wi-Fi. You don't have to buy any mobile credit. You don't have to put any credit at all on the device. You've got a free working SIM with a free RCS channel. So it's going to be interesting to see what Google do about this. With end-to-end encryption, it's kind of hard to spot what's going on until the message arrives at the device. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. And the other thing we've begun to see is A2P being bypassed using RCS. Again, there's a free P2P channel, so if you're going to, if it makes economic sense to do SIM boxes for SMS, then why not use RCS where it's free of charge and you don't even have to worry about messaging quotas or mobile operators monitoring you, seeing which MSC you're connected to, or having to drive trucks around the M25, which apparently SIM boxes do, because you can just run all this over the IP channel, run it all over Wi-Fi, nobody will ever know until the messages arrive. So this is another thing that Google, I know, are actively looking into. They've got some great techniques they're looking at, but eventually what we know about great techniques is when the fraudsters find out, they learn how to bypass them. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as RCS goes. The only other thing was to make sure I addressed all Alan's questions really. We could do that across the room just to make sure that everyone's happy. What's happening on the ground at the moment, I hope I've covered that. Why is it still so complicated for aggregators? I think we've kind of covered that. Not all global aggregators are interested. Why? Is that problem of the direct connects, the model works on commercial agreements with the operators? And enterprises are still holding back. What's going on? Well, hopefully, as we push more and more of this SMS to RCS, we're going to see more and more enterprises and large brands getting involved. And now I'm ready for questions.
Excellent, thank you so much. So you have 2 questions here, go for it.
Want me to pass the mic or?
That's right.
Do you think this is going to, if this starts to get more popular, is this going to inflate the Apple stock from people who don't want to use this on Android as a consumer? I can imagine that if I start getting some messages and maybe I'm on roaming in the middle of the night, I will not be very pleased. And I rarely get SMS.
It's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way around. I've thought about it the other way around. Obviously, Google run their own campaign of get the message with Apple, whether Apple going to adopt the standard and allow RCS onto their devices.
Because now in the States, the iMessage versus, now RCS, it's a status symbol.
Exactly.
And I think if the status symbol comes with, hey, Apple, Google is not reading these messages, and I'm gonna get less advertisements, Google's business model is still the advertisements.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it drive people away from Android completely, or is there some way out, some way to opt out of all these messages, the promotional ones, for example?
So I would say though the vulnerability, so to say, of RCS being used for spam, you can do the same thing with iMessage. Right? It's exactly the same.
I'm not just talking about spam. I'm talking more about the paid for marketing campaigns.
The paid for marketing campaigns are to opted-in only users. And as I said, as I showed, Google are very stringent on that. So it shouldn't be the case that you are receiving marketing messages that you're not expecting.
Google approved some fake KeyPass advertisements verified this week as well.
Did they? Okay. Yeah.
They still have some issues to iron out.
There are some holes in the verification process. I'm not going to pretend that. When you begin to ask them how do you actually verify that it's a bona fide brand, it's not really the right answer to the question that they give. With my other sort of experience in fishing, I know how other things can be done, so I won't go too deep into that, but I think just one point I wanted to pick up on, everyone's like, how can we get Apple involved in this? Is the DMA, European Digital Market Act, going to force them to connect for P2P? What I know about Apple is all they care about, their main concern is their user's experience on their device. And if we continue to demonstrate that RCS delivers these exceptionally rich campaigns that users enjoy, the engagement times are very, very high. When they receive these chatbot-driven type campaigns, they're very, very happy to engage with them. I think the more of that we do, the more Apple will be potentially interested in opening up for A2P RCS, if not P2P.
Great presentation, thank you very much. So I have a question. When you're trying to send in a campaign, let's say a campaign, an RCS campaign, and you figure out or you identify that this number is not activated on RCS, so what happens? You send it through an SMS, like a business chat, or just go to WhatsApp? You give the users an option. What do you do in this case?
You can do a number of things. So typically, what we do with our French consultancy is customers come to us with a list of listings. We scan all of those listings and discover which ones are RCS, and then we build an RCS campaign around those numbers and send it out. RCS capability is changing all the time, so we do get quite a high failure rate on that, relatively high. So we send out RCS to the RCS enabled devices, and then for the non-RCS devices, we can either not do anything, we can send what we call a rich SMS campaign, which is an SMS with a clickable link on it. We try and include some personal information in that message so that the user knows it's not necessarily a phishing message, but links and SMS messages are becoming problematic. We can just do a plain text SMS campaign. We can do all kinds of different things, WhatsApp, whatever. We have methods of automating that. We have methods of doing that manually. Typically, usually, if we're building a bespoke campaign, we do that manually.
So another quick question. So and when you compare the pricing that is offered with RCS compared to the latest WhatsApp pricing, how do you see that? Do you see it the equivalent, less, more cost effective? Like how do you see it for businesses in terms of pricing?
I don't look at WhatsApp pricing, so it's quite hard to answer that question, I'm afraid. In comparison to SMS pricing, I think it's cost effective. Sometimes it's a little bit more expensive, but the results kind of speak for themselves. So,
okay, thank you.
Robert, I just need to okay, and then you. Okay. Oh, you.
I wasn't expecting any interest in RCS at all. So.
Well, it's getting sort of real with a whole host of issues.
So it's very interesting for me because I launched RCS. I was the product manager at Orange 14 years ago. When we did the big launch of RCS. Actually,
how's it going?
And actually part of the code on the device that Google used was developed by my team. So when we find out that it was not going to work, we give them the code. So the first one. Anyway, so my question was, so at that time, RCS was really communication, so it was communication, meaning it was not just text. And so there was a lot of things around video. During the calls, we could add video, we could during a call exchange information, etc. So that all part dead, and it's just a better SMS, but it's not going to do more than that, or is RCS still trying to do things more in the real time and video field?
I think, yeah, I mean, I was looking at some of the specifications myself the other day. I wasn't going too deep, but I was seeing all this video stuff, and I think I don't recognise any of this at all. So, yeah, I mean, primarily today it's a messaging product, a better SMS messaging product. Google are starting to innovate. So they've just added the ability to receive mobile tickets and push them directly into the Google Wallet. This is interesting because that wasn't kind of thought of back in 2015, 2012, whenever the specifications were written. I think we're going to see more and more divergence over time. If I may, I think Google have Brexited RCS from the GSMA, and they will begin to diverge, and they will begin to change, and they will begin to push the boundaries and do some interesting new stuff.
Okay, so any other questions? Just a quick one. Will carriers really verify brands?
Carriers verify brands, yeah. So it varies on a country to country basis, operator to operator basis, but certainly in the UK, they will reach out. We have to provide contact details.
Yeah.
I'll provide TADSummit details. They will email you and they will say, do you give permission to Cinch to register an RCS sender agent in your name? So.
Gotcha. Okay. But in your experience so far, is it all verification through Google? Because Google knows most businesses that are out there. You have Google Maps, you have all this stuff where you have to register yourself as an identifiable business.
So the verification part is actually the gatekeeping on the charging.
Gotcha.
If we register a sender agent, we do it all through the Google portal, and we say we want to set it up on this operator, this operator, this operator, this operator, and any operator that is tagged as providing operator approval, Google will do the preliminary checks, but then push it over to them to do their checks as well. And at the point where they come back and they say, okay, so we want to set up a TADSummit sender identity, but Cinch have not got an agreement with us to send messages, we're not going to approve this, so therefore we can block them from sending to the customers on our network.
Okay, and then within Google Messages you already have spam protection, so why doesn't that protection just extend to all the RBS messages? Spam goes to my spam folder on my Google Messages.
Right, so there is, and the Android people will tell you this, there is that same spam protection at the Android level.
Yeah.
But it's not done in the cloud because of the end-to-end encryption.
Yeah, which is fine.
But it is done on the device,
yeah. So there already is some degree of spam protection.
Yeah.
And what stops Google becoming a campaign provider and then sort of squeezing you out of the business?
That is the big question.
Cool.
They are the only people currently operating in this mode. And my personal view is we should make hay while that particular sun shines.
That's great. Excellent. A round of applause for a great presentation. Thank you. So I'm going to do a quick swap. So I'm going to ask Karel if you can go up next, and Borja, and is it okay if they just swap with your session? You're in the morning session, don't worry. This is just, yeah, because Karel has a noon, so you guys were running a bit late. Oh shit, Dan, wait a minute. Oh, hang on a sec. I need to check the agenda, because I think Dan is up first. My boo-boo. Let me just check the agenda.
Oh yeah.
I was getting ahead of myself. go. Sorry about that, Dan. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Excellent. Sorry, we're having an interesting discussion, if you could believe that, around RCS. So, there was a laugh from the audience there. But we had Guillaume earlier, I don't know if you saw his presentation on passkeys. As you know, I'm a big fan, so really interested to learn from you on all the web-centric, which of course is always going to dominate over all the telco-centric view of the world. Because that's where all the apps live. So Dan, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Share screen. Share. There we go. Great. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you can see what I can see. Right, okay. So, let's go back. Passkeys, 502, WebAuthn, what does it all mean? So, a very quick little bit about me. I know that you're behind time, so I'm going to try and get some time for you. So, I'm Dan Jenkins. I'm the founder of Everycast Labs, Nimble 8, and I'm the creator of an event called ComCon. I was the very first Google developer expert in WebRTC, whatever that really means. But ultimately, Google have this program where they're able to kind of rubber stamp people as, you know what you're talking about, and you talk to the community about it. So you get branded as a Google developer expert. I love Lego, and I love the real-time web, real-time media, and developing for the web, whatever that means. I run a consulting company called Nimble 8. We're based in the UK, and we help people with problems that they need help with, whether or not that's real-time media, whether or not that's web stuff, whether or not that's implementing passkeys, which I'm going to talk to you about today. And then Everycast Labs, we've got a product called Broadcast Bridge, which is designed to bring remote talent into production professional AV workflows. Makes it really, really easy to say, bring someone into a new news program on like the BBC or Channel 4. And yeah, bridging real-time comms with the broadcast industry is fun. They have very different ideals of what quality is, and so fighting that battle all the time is very, very, very fun. And then lastly, ComCon is a residential event in the UK for open media, whether or not that's real time or not. Everyone stays in the same hotel. So we're all in the same hotel for like 4 days, 3 days worth of content, 4 days in total, and we do like cool evening stuff, top quality production value, 5 years worth of content on the YouTube channel, and we are looking for sponsorship for 2024. So passkeys, 502, WebAuthn, what does it all mean? So firstly, can't really see in the room, but who here knows someone that writes their passwords in a book or on a bit of paper? Who or reuses passwords across loads of different websites? I'm gonna just assume that everyone is nodding because everyone knows at least one person that does this. So yeah, even though you've tried to help them do better multiple times, you've eventually given up, right? So everyone knows this and everyone knows someone. So I want you to think about that throughout this talk. So secondly, what is two-factor auth? Because to be able to understand what passkeys are, you kind of need to know what two-factor auth is. Typically, it's a username with a password plus something else, and that something else can change, right? So typically, it's something you know, something you have, or something you are. So that can be a PIN number, that can be a hardware key type thing, or a TOTP code from an app, or it can be like a fingerprint or a voice print or an iris scan. I'd love an iris scan type thing on my desk. That would be cool, wouldn't it? So two-factor auth is amazing, right? Like we use it every single day as professionals to be able to protect the things that we log into. But ultimately, two-factor auth is a massive pain in the rear too, ranging from downright terrible. This is actually something that I got yesterday. So some It's not quite two-factor auth, but it's very, very apt. I got a phone call from someone pretending to be O2. O2 is not my carrier. My phone number is actually from O2, but I ported it a long time ago. So I got a phone call from O2, and they wanted to give me a prize. And I paid along for a little bit, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to send you a code." And it's like, the code that I just received says, like, don't give it to you. And who's like, yeah, give it to me anyway. It's like, hang on, so this is SMS, two-factor auth to a degree. So that's terrible. We can have absolutely fantastic two-factor auth as well, right? We can have YubiKeys with biometrics in them. Like, this is great. This is something you have to plug in. This is a fingerprint as well. But it's not necessarily really accessible, right? Not everyone has the money to go and buy you can't see that because my background is blurring, but not everyone has the money to go and buy a separate key. Not everyone wants to be able to, carry around a separate key. Like, what if you're, I don't know, on a plane? I'm on a plane a lot, and you've left your keys in your hold luggage for some, I don't know. Like, suddenly you can't log into something, right? So it's not really accessible. But two-factor auth is a necessity. And we have so many ways to protect us with two-factor auth. And anything is better than nothing, except SMS. Don't use SMS, ever. I really wish SMS got removed as a two-factor auth option from absolutely everywhere. So we've got SMS, we've got TOTP codes that you get from an authenticator app, whether or not that's Authy, whether or not that's Google Authenticator, or one of the others. Slight note there, I can't see, but who uses a TOTP generator within their password manager? For me, it sounds like the most dumb idea in the world. Someone gets access to your password manager, they've got your passwords, and they've got your TOTP codes. Completely null and void two-factor auth. So there's TOTP codes, WebAuthn/FIDO with security keys, and then you've got app-based push notifications. This is becoming really, really popular, and I absolutely detest it for lots and lots and lots of reasons. And then you've got voice-based codes that someone calls you with a code as well. But now we've got passkeys. But then, what's FIDO2 and what's WebAuthn? You put them into the title. So in short, FIDO2 is a group of specifications, standards, around how to do security with devices. And WebAuthn is basically enabling those specifications within a browser in a standard way that allows you to do it anywhere, in any browser. We did have, in previous versions of Chrome, previous versions of Safari, I think, or maybe Firefox, I can't remember. Chrome definitely had it, where you could use a security key. But it wasn't, and it was FIDO2, but it wasn't a standard way of doing it. And so WebAuthn came to the W3C and is a set of APIs around being able to interact with a passkey now, and with security keys like this. So yeah, what are passkeys, and are they our savior? We keep hearing about passkeys a lot. So this is a video that I recorded literally an hour ago of me signing up to passkeys.io. It's a great demo website. And so you put in your email, and you say, yes, I want to create a passkey, and you put your fingerprint on your Mac, which I'm using, and it creates a passkey. There's no password inside. And then this is me creating another passkey, but using my phone instead of my fingerprint reader on my Mac. And so I can open up my camera app, and I can say, yes, this is a passkey thing, open it for me, and then the two devices kind of communicate with one another, and then it goes, right, I'm going to sign in using your face instead of your fingerprint, and that becomes a passkey. And then I think, yeah, I add another passkey using this little security key. So there you go, I'm plugging it in, and you can see it's a FIDO device. And so we create a passkey, and I select I want to use a security key instead, and then I tap on my security key, and a passkey gets made. And then that's it. And there's no passwords inside. So that's the end. Ooh, there we go. So what if I said you've actually been using a form of passkey for years, right? Any website that's been developing WebAuthn or security key FIDO2 stuff, and not just websites, just normal apps, etc., then you've been using a passkey, basically. Passkey is the new name for everything that kind of this encompasses. But passkeys go a little bit further. So a passkey is a FIDO2 private key. I think a passkey is actually a FIDO2 credential, I think is the proper term for it. But essentially you get given a private key. And you can use any of these devices. And it's not just Yubico. Yubico is just like the main one that everyone understands immediately. There's a couple out there that are based off of open source hardware, which are great, but Yubico is like the one that everyone recognizes. So the second one to the left is the one that I actually use. It's USB-C and it's NFC. But as soon as I get an iPhone 15 Pro Max, whenever they finally become in stock again, I'll be switching out to a USB-C bio one with a fingerprint. The only reason I've got the NFC is so that I can use it on my iPhone, because iPhone didn't used to have USB-C. So yeah, that's right. You've been using passkeys for years. It's just that they've kind of had a rebrand. Passkeys are just FIDO credentials. So let's take a look at what actually goes into making one. So this is a diagram that's on the Passkeys.io website. Passkeys.io is a really great website for kind of learning how all of this works. But ultimately, you can see there, a user clicks on a register button after putting in their email address, for example. That then gets sent to the server of that app or auth service that you're using. That auth service creates a challenge and sends it back to you. Then you say, right, I want to create a passkey. So credentials.create with that challenge. So then that goes off to the OS basically and says, right, present up a, do you want to use biometric, do you want to use PIN, etc. You do it, and then that gets passed off back to the OS, and then you create sign a challenge and create the key pair. So you get a public key given back to you. Private key gets stored within the OS, the browser, whatever, and then the challenge is signed as well. And then you pass all that information back to the server, and the server goes, yep, this is a valid passkey for us, thank you very much, and it stores it. And it's kind of that simple, right? Like, there's no MD5 hashing. No one does MD5 hashing anymore, but you know what I mean. No hashing, password hashing, no salting. Like, you get given a public key, and that's it. So ultimately, it's a public and private key, and that combo is made. And then that public key is stored on a server instead of a password. Passkeys are passwordless. They don't have to be, but that's kind of the default standard. And so, yeah, they replace passwords. And this is something that we all kind of need to get our heads around. Like, for a very, very long time, we've had two-factor auth. Two-factor auth has protected a password and username combo with a key, with a public key, with a private key. But instead, passkeys change that, and we're just getting rid of the password. So if they replace the password, are they really two-factor auth? Because lots of people talk about passkeys as having built-in two-factor auth. I personally don't believe that they are, because ultimately they don't have this. They don't have the two things. You might say that, oh, well, it requires your fingerprint, right? Or it requires a PIN. But then that's how is that any different to like knowing your password? You need something to protect something else. And I don't, in my head at least, passkeys don't do that. The thing can't be the first thing. So the fingerprint can't be the thing that unlocks this public key. You used to know your password. You don't know what your public key is. You're not typing in your public key, you're just unlocking it. And so if you just unlock it once by having your fingerprint or a password to unlock your public key, or how is that any different to just, you know, a username and password combo? So what is exciting about passkeys? Why am I excited about passkeys? And quite simply, passkeys are more secure than passwords. If a server doesn't have your password, whether or not it's salted or not, like we all know that passwords get leaked, and then, you know, server farms go to town on them and try and, you know, figure out what they were before they were salted. And so we end up with hacks, air quote hacks, utilizing passwords that people have figured out. So if you don't have a password and it's just this public key that is unique, then there's nothing to hack, right? So there's no password to go and use elsewhere. There's no one to go and social engineer into making a mistake, because it's just it's a public key on your device. So this is where I realized that we aren't really the target audience for passkeys. The target audience is our granny or our mum. It's aimed at our parents, it's aimed at our grandparents, it's aimed at our co-workers that hate two-factor auth. I've certainly got a co-worker that hates two-factor auth, and whenever I set up something and say, force two-factor auth on this, I definitely get something mentioned to me. But it's there to protect us. You can have your password leaked, but if someone doesn't have your physical key, they're never going to get in. So yeah, the ones that write on bits of paper in a book, we all know that someone. So because passkeys are more unique, they're more secure than passwords that are used many times across multiple websites. So who is actually building with passkeys? I mean, the answer is everyone. You can go to passkeys.directory today and you can see a list of people that are actually implementing passkeys. And just this week, GitHub have added support for passkeys, and WhatsApp have added support for passkeys on Android. Unfortunately, I don't have an Android device that I use WhatsApp on, so I wasn't able to go and actually implement it. But this is me signing up to my GitHub account and adding a passkey. And then you can see there the word synced. So that's because I created it using my Mac, which then meant that it got stored into iCloud, which then meant that this is a synced passkey. When you create a passkey, you can actually say, I don't want this to be syncable as well. Right? So there's a load of extra stuff that we can start doing with passkeys to kind of lock down things even further. So this is passkeys on WhatsApp. Passkeys have really picked up pace, and they're friendly, and they sync with your other devices. At the moment, that's with Apple, with iCloud Sync. It's with Google, with Google Password Manager Sync. They're actually kind of starting to, I think you can now make a passkey in Chrome, which then gets synced with the Google stuff, but then it actually saves it to the underlying OS, and so if you're running on a Mac, you end up with passkeys in multiple places. But then ultimately you've got password managers as well starting to support passkeys as well. I think 1Password now supports it. Bitwarden says that they're going to do support and they're releasing it in October. We'll see whether or not that happens or not. So you don't have to rely, or hopefully soon you're not going to have to rely on, you know, the gods of Google or Apple to keep things secure for you. Ultimately they're simple, right? And they're secure. And even my mum could use a passkey. Which means throwing away that book of passwords that I know she absolutely does have. So how on earth can we in telecoms make use of them? I mean, I don't have the answer. Sounds like we already had a talk that kind of talked about some of that. But we need to figure it out, right? We need to figure out how to be able to better utilize them, because ultimately, like SMS, two-factor auth, and voice codes aren't good for everyone. Well, they're just not good. They are open to social engineering, and so we need to stop using them ASAP. October is Cyber Security Awareness Month. So this was a newsletter released by DSIT, in part of the UK government, kind of going, oh, you could go and do all of this stuff, which is absolutely fantastic to see. October 2023 marks 20 years of Cyber Security Awareness Month. I think that's really cool. I think that's special. 20 years of the world and world organisations trying to improve cybersecurity every single year, and it hasn't gone away. But ultimately, we should be trying to, improve cybersecurity awareness every single month, not just 20 times. So go and help someone become more secure, or go and add support for passkeys into your app, whatever that app is. And if you want more in-depth detail about how you go about creating passkeys under the hood and how things really work underneath, then you can go and watch my friend Chris Sherwood's video on passkeys. There's never a better time to support passkeys, WebAuthn, FIDO, FIDO2. So go and do it today. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dan.
Any questions for Dan? If not, that was great. Covered the topic perfectly. And nice compliment to what Guillaume presented before. So because we're trying to catch up time, I'll skip the questions, but again, Dan, well done, and look forward to seeing you soon. Oh, well, we will, because we have the Camera Chronicles. So we'll see you on the panel session where you will be our token dev, okay?
I'll see you later. Cheers,
Gotcha.
bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now,
Hello, now we are going to present you how artificial intelligence in telephony systems and solutions can be embedded, and we are going to share with you how those solutions can be integrated in voice telephony systems. First of all, my first lesson with telecoms was to define that in a phone call we have two layers. The first one control the call establishment and of course the hang up, and the second one manage the voice transport. So artificial intelligence can act in both layers. The first one, associated to the establishment of calls, you can receive call and signaling events that can be catched by a system and analyzed to process, as we see, fraud detection and dashboard generation, for example. This is a kind of solution developed by Oracle, for example, that connects to the SBC, get those events, and can alert on suspicious traffic, for example. But in phone calls, the main use is to transport the voice between the two users. And in these channels, we have a lot of data, of content that we can analyze with very complex artificial intelligence tools. And so that's those tools that we are going to present and share with you how that works and how they can add values to telephony systems.
Thank you. So actually, maybe we missed one part, which is we didn't introduce ourselves. Sorry. So go ahead.
So sorry, I lost my introduction. I am Borja Sixto. I am the co-founder of the ULEX company, and we develop IVR systems with natural language.
And I'm Karel Bourgois, the founder of Voxis, and we develop speech recognition systems. I don't know if you hear me, and I don't know if people can hear me. Maybe my voice. Okay, I'm talking like that. Probably works better. So Karel Bourgois, I'm the founder of Voxis, and we do speech recognition software solutions. But so, among things you can do with AI around the speech itself, there are some interesting use cases. Yeah, sorry. You can do speech enhancement. So speech enhancement is actually things that we've been doing in the telecom industry for a long time using analogs. But you can do eliminate noise, you can eliminate specific noise like music, wind, or any type of background audio you want to get rid of. But you can also make the speech easier to understand. So if you're a call center, you receive calls, sometimes people don't speak very well, they have accent, etc. So you can use AI to do all of those use cases. And one thing also we've seen very recently is that around new codecs. So Meta did a paper where they say that with AI they can get 10 times more compression level than what you can do with the state-of-the-art compressions. And another thing for sure is voice biometrics. So we are talking about passkey and how you can identify users. So voice is a very good way of identifying user. There is a lot of issues on the regulatory side because of the GDPR, but you have some great solutions that are being used either for authentication or for identification. Now, so for those of you who were there last year, I was talking about speech recognition. I was showing the old way of doing it in ASR, where you have different steps where you have to get the audio. From the audio you get the phonemes, then you put the phonemes together. So that was the old way of doing it. It was really complex. And I showed you how we can do it now with end-to-end models, but things already moved out, very fast. So last year, just after I think TADSummit or around TADSummit, Whisper went out with a new way of doing it using what we call encoder-decoder. And now we have all the LLMs. So the next generation, I think, are going to be around that type of architecture, where you mix the speaker recognition of an encoder-decoder with the LLM, so the LLM can actually understand the content. And directly at the end, you not only have the transcription, but you have information like there was a train in the background, the people were happy, the people were not happy, etc. And I'm going to give you a short demo of what we can do currently with that type of integration where we mix LLM with transcriptions. So this is an audio that I'm going to play. It's in French, so right now I'm sending it to transcription text a little time. But what's going to be interesting is probably none of you will understand it. It's in French, but I don't understand it either. Oh, sorry. I need to have the sounds much higher. Okay.
Super scanner server to raconter une plaque de ligne, bilan pour la ligne technique de poids de ligne, injection sensible pour la ligne, c'est crainte de poids de ligne. Les structures médianes sont en place système, on fait que là, étant normal, point, pas d'émergence entre place serveur point, pas de méthode de point, je serveur point, parce que.
So this is a doctor talking. He's talking so fast that you can barely recognize the words. And even if you did recognize the word, the vocabulary is just like so freaking complex. So, but that's what the ASR end up doing mixed with LLM. They can understand what's the indication, what are the conclusions, what are the different domains that are being talked of. And so not only you have a true transcription, but you have actually the real meaning of what the doctor is saying. So that's some example of use case that we will be able to do more and more with this mix of ASR and LLMs. And I let you go on the other side of.
After listen, system can talk, and of course, to talk, the system use neural synthesis voice. I think everyone already listened about with a synthetic voice, and that you detect that it is a voice. Nowadays, new technology allows you to have a very natural and expressive voice. I give you an example from 11 Labs. It's a very young startup, and just listen what you can integrate in a phone call.
Hey there. Did you know that AI voices can whisper? Or do pretty much anything?
Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats because this is one bizarre sight. We have reports of an enormous fluffy pink monster strutting its stuff through downtown.
Fluffy bird in downtown? Weird. Let's switch the setting to something more calming.
Imagine diving into a fast-paced video game. Your heartbeat syncing with the storyline. I gotta go, the aliens are closing in. That wasn't calming at all.
Explore all those voices yourself. Hey there. Did you know that AI voices can whisper?
Okay, I think it's enough. As you see, the voices have a very high quality. Of course, when you play with this voice in IVR systems, the quality of the response should be adjusted to that. Another technology that we use after having the ability to understand, or better say, to listen the user and to spoke to them, we need to understand what they are meaning. So to understand what users are meaning, we use a natural language understanding, that is technology that detects from text what is the intention of the user. So this technology uses artificial intelligence with a specific training where you can define the main subjects that the system should understand. Once you have all these Lego bricks, you should define what is the call flow or the dialogue flow from the user. Nowadays, most of the solutions used in the market use a low-code or no-code solution that generally is a graphical interface. When you put blocks and you join the blocks with wires, and you define what is the call flow of the user, and for each blocks you can define what the system should say and what it can expect from response from the user. The last solution that we see and we work with is now complete changing the model to create this voice agent is to use solutions with LLMs like ChatGPT. In this case, there is no longer graphical interface, but you use prompt, as we see yesterday, a super prompt from Paul, where we define the instruction and the condition where the system should answer. So we should take care about the solution because they are not always GDPR. And of course, we have hallucination from this system that should be controlled because in customer care services, you should control what you say to the customers. So now we are going to explain different use cases. This brick can be used to create added values.
So we saw, I think, some example of that yesterday, but so the idea of doing speech analysis on an offline manner. So the idea here is more for call center example. At the end of the day, they have a mapping of the customer satisfaction level, what are the words that are being used. So we use all the voice conversation and we do text mining. We do things like knowledge management also for that. So from all those conversations, you can find out what people are talking about, who is not eligible in such area. So, for example, we work with Fortune 100 companies who use that because they have so much knowledge worldwide, and they don't always know who are the knowledgeable persons. So they can identify subject matter experts using conversations that they have. And that allows us to allow a company that use those technology to create those type of dashboard where you see the type of subject that's been used during the day, the type of conversation, if they are happy and not happy, the volume issue, etc.
So the other use case is to create virtual agents with many goal is to welcome users, identify them, route their calls, but for sometimes the system cannot answer directly to the answer because it was a complex process to do. And of course, sometimes for a simple task, the system can be autonomous and be able to solve the problems that customers request from the phone call. Excuse me.
But nowadays you also do outgoing calls.
Yes, in this case we can of course process incoming calls, but we can generate campaigns and use artificial intelligence and natural language for outgoing calls. So we are making nowadays several campaigns to test the reaction of the user with this kind of systems that use natural language.
And if I remember well, you were telling me yesterday one of your campaign, they compare to what they used to do with human, and they have a better conversion rate with the...
Yes, in fact, that we see that you have very natural voices, but we can use pre-recorded voices too. And what we are trying to test is the reaction from a user when the exchange seems to be human, because when you talk to a human or when you answer to a human, your reaction is not the same. When you see that it's a robot, I think it's like when you speak to a child, you adapt the interaction to this model. So increasing the voice, increasing the capability of reacting, change the way to interact with this user and change the return of what the user can say or how they can explain their issues.
And surprisingly enough, some people prefer to talk to robots than to humans because there is less emotion and less empathy. And so you are telling me that for some companies that helps actually because the people don't like to engage with a human and talk about personal problems, etc. So at the end, AI sometimes is a better communication channel than human. I'm not like that. I like to talk to humans. And yeah, and another way of doing it actually for a use case where you want to talk to human, but you can use AI to augment the human agent. So it allows them during the call to have less to concentrate on what's being said because the data is going to be automatically cached by the AI and then input in their CRM, by example, and so they can be more focused on the human part of the conversation, the emotion parts eventually. And you can do a lot of things through the call summaries also. So nowadays we see that more and more for Zoom-like meetings where you have this AI that will give you a summary, but that's also something that's very useful for call centers. So at the end of a call to have in the CRM system a recording of the main topic, of what was being said. You can use also that for compliance issues. So in certain area like banking and insurance, where you have certain things that need to be said from a regulatory point of view. Until now, you will record, and if there was an audit, then you have to listen to the recordings. And now you know at the end of the call immediately, did the agent say the proper thing? Did he forget to do that? And so the supervisor can remind them of the specific things. So in conclusion, I think we've seen that over the last few days. What's amazing is AI is going everywhere within the telecom field, because it's on the signaling, we talk about fraud, it's on the voice side, both to understand the voice, to create voice, and then to create all those conversations. So there is a lot of value that can be added. Now there is also a lot of hype, and we can't replace all the conversation with AI. There is a lot of issues around. We are talking about hallucinations, so you have to be very careful, and so your models need to be trained. So by example, the example I gave earlier in the medical field, the way we use it is that there's still a human at the end who control everything, because we would not use the output of the AI directly. If there is any error, that could be pretty problematic. And another thing also is we hear a lot about open source solutions, and so people are thinking, well, why do you still have those companies? You're all dead because they're open source solutions. But the thing is, the reality of the production is you can't just take an open source solution and put it in production. Well, you can, but you have to spend a lot of effort to do that. So for a lot of companies, it doesn't make sense. It's not their business, their core business to do AI. And so they could do speech to text using an open source, or they can work with any of the company that specialize in that. But it makes more sense, because if you need to do all the integration, the productization of those solutions, it's very complex. And one of the things that Borja is working on is really how to, and you should explain that better than me because you're doing it, but how you bring all this solution together in the conversations.
Yes, three aspects. The first is the tuning. Those technology need an adaptation to the context, so you need to get a lot of data and make some improvement with the various cycles. The real time, we speak about voice, and users need to have quick answers in terms of voice. When I finish to speak, I need the feedback from the system. So when you use the transcription, the natural language understanding, and the text-to-speech, the response time should be shorter as possible. And as we see that we start using ChatGPT and large model language, those technologies have real costs. It seems to be very powerful, but the economic model is not always very clear in terms of use.
Well, thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any question.
So as you say, the user needs to get the answers fast, and as Karel was explaining, maybe the speech to text will probably be merged somehow with large language models at some point to get a better understanding of everything. Do you think it will be necessary to also get the text to speech into the same thing and have some extreme end-to-end training to be able to get the latency down, for the model to understand as it's going, the large language model to understand the meaning of the conversation, to, for example, adjust the tone? Should it show empathy? Should it show anger? Where do you think the big bottleneck is to make it as a really natural speech? Because I know that the high quality text to speech is rather slow.
Concerning the reactivity, of course, we can join the transcription and analyze in order to improve the response times and take care about the emotion. For us, we are not very clear with this subject, because we think that machine with emotional and the care of emotional, it's complex to first to detect. It's not we have not a very high accuracy, and we don't know if we really need to change the attitude and the response relative to the emotional status of the user. So I know that there are some companies that are working on these terms. For us, what is more important is that the answer should be the right one. Okay, I think the emotion can be generated instead of captured.
What is at the moment the big bottleneck for the delay? Is it the large language model or is it the text-to-speech?
I think it depends on how you structure your dialogue. For example, if you ask a closed question, you can be very reactive because you are going to tune the way that you catch this answer. But if you have a very global question as how can I help you, in this case you should listen and of course be able to allow that the user could hesitate and make a pause, and in this case the reaction time could be longer.
And I think there is another part of that, which is the business model, as Iggy was saying. So the fact that you have 3 layers in a way, kind of understanding the audio, creating the answer, and synthesizes the audio of the answer. It also, it has a latency impact, but it has a cost impact. That means that you have 3 models potentially, so 3 GPU usage in parallel. So putting those more and more together allow you to gain into latency, but also will probably lower the cost. And to answer your first question, so there are things being done in that field at Meta in particular, where they do speech to speech. So you can go from speech directly to another speech without going through the text first, but they don't yet have the kind of LLM part integrated into that. So I'm sure there are going to be things in that field coming years, but for now it's nothing you see in production yet.
And of course we have improvement in the process. As I said, we can adjust the timeout for the reactivity in function of the question. We can use regular expression because sometimes most of users only say agent to be transferred to the agent. So we don't need a large model to detect this short word. And the text-to-speech can be cached too. If we use always the same content, this content can be directly available, and don't use always a system that converts the text to voice.
Any other question? Well, thank you very much.
That was excellent. Thank you so much. Great presentation. Okay, Rob. So what I'm going to do is we're going to skip the panel because the answer is already clear. It's pointless. The camera. So, and the sandwiches have arrived as well. So we do Rob's presentation and then we'll break, and that will get us back on time again. Because we've had a lot of Q&A with many of the presentations. So that's sort of starting late, and then all the questions are sort of pushed us out later and later and later. So I still want to get us finished on time. So that's the way we bring ourselves back to schedule. I bet you are.
We'll get that.
Hello, right, I'm Rob Pickering. This is yet another talk about LLMs and telephones, which is now keeping us away from lunch as well. So I'm going to try and keep this brief. I think quite a lot of people in the room know me, but I've been involved in the TAD organisation and TAD hack since about 2014, when I did a WebRTC hack. But basically I'm a technical person. I'm also a company founder and latterly an advisor and investor, but I see the whole world through the lens of code and software development. So when I see a problem or I see a technology I need to evaluate, I tend to just go and write some code to figure out what is real and what is bullshit, I guess, is my take, as Alan would say it. So one of the companies that one of my companies I'm involved in, started looking at conversational AI afresh really when ChatGPT went general release at the turn of the year, and I'm going to talk about some of my experience with this. This talk title, everything moves so fast in AI. I said to Alan I would do this talk maybe about 2 months ago, and I put this talk title in, and it's the usual kind of formula for this kind of thing. You ask a kind of banal question, and then you put a controversial subtitle on it to make people actually turn up. And that was the title of the talk: should we put LLMs on the phone? And hallucinating, waste of time, useful tool, or danger to humanity? Actually, given I'm sort of the third talk on LLMs on the telephone at this thing, and certainly, everyone else is of the view like, yeah, we're doing it, hey man. And I think that's actually right. It's just inevitable. It's kind of like if I had said yesterday, folks, should we go out for a drink tonight? Most people would be saying yes. There would be some people who have genuine reasons to say, no, actually I don't want to do that, that's not a good idea, but for most of us it's a direction of travel. And I think that's where we are now with the idea of putting LLMs on the telephone. It's something that's going to happen, so how do we do it best? So I developed a new title for this talk. This is a much better title. How I learned to stop worrying and love the AI, but how do we make it safe? And you probably have to be of a certain age to even understand the illusion here. But the image wasn't generated by AI, so I claim moral high ground on that. So the case that I'm actually talking about, the thing that the use case is the hard customer service piece, right? First gen conversational AI, things like the Dialogflow, Lex type stuff, where we were taking a customer on a journey. That's proven it works. It works in A2P, where we've got effectively time delayed messaging. But what I'm really talking about now are the kind of the holdouts, the areas that up to now we conversational AI really doesn't work great for, and that really is these two areas of people who can't or won't use a smartphone. So most of us, if I want to book a train ticket, I go and do it through my smartphone. And, maybe there's a little conversational AI bot that the train company puts in the corner. And I might choose to use that, but I probably won't actually, because I want to get the information and do it that way. And then the other use case, the kind of group of people who can't or won't do that, either because they don't have a smartphone or aren't au fait with the technology to use one of those screen-based technologies. That's actually quite a vulnerable community. So within that are folks who, for all sorts of reasons, aren't going to be able to engage in lots of aspects of society because of that, and we need to take a lot of care about the way that we approach that group of people and the problems they have. And I thought I loved your answer yesterday about empathy, Paul, and I think it's really dangerous when we start expanding conversational AI into some of these demographics. And then the other one is kind of this issue of, I've got a user who has tried to use the automated system, and the algorithm is broken. I had to do this as a picture of the OBB customer service place at Vienna station, because my online train reservation just wouldn't work. And I'm trying to take it out of the basket to make the credit card transaction go through, so I turn up. And the reason I turn up there to do that is because there's a human being behind the counter who's got a passkey to, they can make reservations on any train. They don't need to conform to the algorithm. So the other reason that we tend to use telephone calls in customer service is to get hold of a human being who can kind of get around the system for us. And they're really hard use cases for AI. So we're setting a high bar here, high objective. So where I came from was trying to build one of these systems using first-gen conversational tools, Dialogflow in this case. And I thought, well, this is going to be really easy. We can make this accessible to SMEs. We can produce a tool that allows them to build a chatbot. If you want to go find it, there's a talk about it in TADSummit 2020. It was a pandemic-related thing. We can teach people in small charities, small organisations to build a chatbot where the results come out in a Google Sheet, and we'll give it away because it's a pandemic, and afterwards we'll charge like £10 a month, and this is really easy. Trouble is, we found the onboarding was taking about half a day, so you can't physically go and spend half a day in front of someone to onboard them on something that you're going to charge, £10, €10, $10 a month for. So that's kind of where I came from, and I sort of abandoned this sphere of endeavour, if I'm honest, at that point, because it's kind of like, the folks who are doing this at a mid-tier and charging tens of thousands of consultancy to build a chatbot, they're right, it takes that much effort, where we stand at the moment. And I'm not going to bother you with the video there. So I came back, circled back to this, start of this year. Can we just use ChatGPT for all of this? I don't know, let's give it a go. So the obvious choice for building a platform, the thing about writing code to see if things actually are what they say they are or everyone else says they are. So I thought, let's choose a platform and do this. Jambones was the obvious choice. It's open source. It had got a lot of instrumentation already in it. It had got APIs to do a lot of this. I could just piggyback on Dave, about 10 speech-to-text engines or whatever that are supported in Jambones. So I could pretty quickly hook up to its APIs, hook up to the OpenAI API, and produce something that actually works. I thought, okay, let's do that. Let's give it a go. It can't be as hard as people say, right? And then moving it on a bit, I wanted to play with different models, so added ChatGPT 4, 3.5, Google Palm 2. Need to actually add Llama to this mix, haven't done so yet, but I think there might be some interesting things that come out of that. Write it as a service. All this is on GitHub, by the way. I'll show you the links later. Expose an API, and the API is really simple. You just do a post with your agent prompt. The API comes back and gives you a phone number out of the pool, and it was deliberately designed for playing with, so the phone number is persistent. It's out of a pool inside Jambones. You post your prompt, you get a phone number back, you make a phone call, and you've got an agent there that just works. So there's also some stuff in the API to update it mid-call, either across the agent or for an individual call, and I'll come back to why that's useful in a second. So that's the API taken care of, but APIs aren't really useful for people to evaluate stuff, so we just put a bit of a React front end on it. And the React front end allows someone to just go to a website. Again, there's a link there, I think, at llm.applesay.com. You can go there. Just because it's using some expensive resources, you have to register, but you register with an email address. And you can start playing with putting prompts into LLMs, making phone calls to them, and seeing what happens. So what does happen? I had this kind of wacky idea of, let's see what happens if we connect up two different agents with two different prompts to take on two different roles. And it's like one of these things where you wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. and you think, wow, that's a really good idea. So tried to go back to sleep, but no, that didn't work. So I just wrote a couple of prompts and did it, and this was the outcome.
Hello, I need to order some donuts.
Hi there, thank you for calling Rob's Donuts. I'd be happy to help you with your order. How many donuts would you like to order?
Hello, I need to order some donuts. I sell on average 45 donuts a day. What is the best price you can offer me?
Notice the cafe sound in the background.
Great.
I thought I would
Selling an average of 45 donuts is fantastic. Let me calculate the best price for you. Based on our cost price, I can offer you a special price of 40 pence per donut. So for 45 donuts, the total would be £18. How does that sound to you?
Thank you for the offer, but I'm afraid that price is too high for me. I need to maintain a margin of 75% on my purchase price in order to make a profit. Can you offer a lower price?
understand your need to maintain a good profit margin. Let me see what I can do for you. Considering your desired margin of 75%, I can offer you a discounted price of 35 pence per donut. This would make the total for 45 donuts £15.75. Would that price work better for you?
Thank you for considering my margin requirements. The price of £35 per day for 45 donuts sounds more reasonable.
Did you hear that someone went a little bit wrong there? What actually went wrong there was that, that was a really interesting exchange, right? And if those two, and they do actually conclude their negotiations, so they go any further loops. I'm not going to waste 10 minutes of your time going around that, but they do actually converge on a price that are within the parameters that were both given in the end. What actually happened there was an error in the speech to text where the pence was missing. So the restaurant owner misunderstood the 35 pence a donut and understood it as £35 for a batch of 45 donuts a day, and then got very confused. Now, sorry, I used words like understand and confuse. I should not use those words because there's no understanding and there's nothing to be confused. But they're following a pattern. I thought that was quite interesting, and we'll talk about how we get around things like that and constrain them by the laws of universe and maths and things. But just in case you're sort of interested, that's the prompt that the restaurant owner was running. So this is not, this is not hard. I think that's kind of interesting. That I think that whole thing took me, I don't know, about 25 minutes from start of an idea to writing two prompts to having these two things talk to each other. And I think one of those was GPT 3.5, the other was GPT 4. And you can hear from the latency which one is GPT 4 if you listen carefully, because GPT does introduce the latency, particularly the big models. So, in some ways, let's just connect LLMs to telephone systems, then we'll write prompts, and then that's the whole of conversational AI done and dusted, right? No. Prompting is a trap. It's a trap because a prompt isn't code. It isn't even instructions. So we write this thing which we think we're giving the LLM instructions. We're not giving it instructions. We're initializing it with some state. And we're hoping that the initialization with that state, when it's combined with further user input, will produce something sensible. But all the same, I think so long as we bear in mind that limitation, we can actually do some useful stuff with this, right? We have got to acknowledge the problems, and here for me are the four. There are lots of problems with large language models and AI around power consumption and things, but they're big meta in terms of the English word problems that we will solve. But the main ones that actually cause us concern in conversational AI world are hallucination, which is this idea that somehow the agent hallucinates. I mean, what it's actually doing is, because it's random and generative, sometimes the random does things that we don't expect. And then there's a special case really of hallucination, which is prompt injection, and this is basically taking advantage of the fact that this is just operating on tokens with the knowledge of how it works to make the LLM do things that the person who wrote the prompt didn't intend it to do. And that's a huge problem if you give your AI-based agent any kind of agency. If you're going to allow it access to bank accounts and there's a kind of prompt injection way of transferring money or something like that, the user didn't intend by kind of injecting something in the audio of the telephone conversation. That's a really bad thing to do, right? So, the kind of solution to both of these things actually is to contain the AI and effectively atomically encapsulate each of those transactions within a single prompt, then take the output and feed it into logic. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. There's also another issue that I think you see in all demos around LLMs. The latency is too long right now, unless you're doing really tight integration between the speech to text and with OpenAI you're running a model in some data center Who knows where the data center is, but you've got a lot of latency to the data center. You've got a lot of latency until you get your prompt executed on a GPU. And then you've got a good bit coming back, and then you've got your end-to-end speech-to-text and text-to-speech latency. So it's really quite hard work to get that down to a level that a human perceives as a natural conversation. But there are some things we can do there. And again, I'll go into that in a second. And you know, the other big issue around all this stuff is the privacy of it. If we're dealing with a sensitive conversation, the fact that that's going off to a GPU and an OpenAI data center or a Google data center may not be something that we can do legally or morally, and that's certainly something that we have to consider. But crucially, you know, this issue of hallucination and prompt injection, there is an easy solution to this, and that's to use gatekeeping to control the amount of agency that each individual kind of LLM run has. And effectively, we built this into the API so that what you effectively do is you set up an initial prompt, and that gives you the initial intent detection. And then once you've detected an intent, you kick things back into a gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper then effectively updates the prompt. It could be using the same engine or a different one, but effectively kicks you into a different context to do the work. And the crucial thing really here is this diagram where our gatekeeper logic is the thing which really controls the agency. Now, this doesn't do a lot for my problem of the system won't give me a seat reservation because it's against its rules, but you're a human, you can override that. But the crucial thing going on here is that each of these intents, or each of these LLM prompts, think of these as an LLM prompt actually, gets to talk directly to the user, but it's using a set of parameters that have been designed for the job that it's doing. And what it effectively does at the end of its intent detections, it kicks the whole process back into the gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper is the only thing that actually has direct access to the customer data. So if you think about something like a banking transaction where a customer comes in and says, yeah, I want to transfer some money, certainly, sir, I need to authenticate you in doing that. So, you know, the last thing you do is tell the LLM what authentication, whether it's phrases or words or whatever they're matching against, because the LLM is, well, it's not even stupid, it's a state machine, and it's a state. It can kick some of that state back to the user. You just have to accept that anything that's sitting within the domain of that LLM could possibly be exposed by a prompt injection attack or whatever. So you don't do that. You have the LLM effectively control the conversation, but then when it's extracted, what it is pretty sure is the auth token from the user, you hand that to the gatekeeper, and then the gatekeeper in code authenticates that against the database. So, you know, even if I manage to do a prompt injection here on my auth prompt, it doesn't matter. And there are various layers to this, like you can have the LLM in the auth controller effectively be able to say to the gatekeeper, you know, is this authorized to kick me into another context? And the gatekeeper says, well, you know, maybe the user gave an answer which wasn't correct, but it wasn't incorrect. So, you know, go back and ask them for a more general, here's a hint, to go and ask them for a more specific answer. You know, if it's asking you where were you born, and you give, I don't know, the county, and actually the answer on your set of answers is the town, then you can go back with an answer from the gatekeeper logic that says, you know, that answer wasn't right. And actually, the gatekeeper logic can be used in an entirely different LLM, but within its prompting, with tight control over what inputs it's getting to effectively try and work out if there's a relationship between the auth answer that was given and what it has. And then, obviously, on the way out of each of these, you then, the gatekeeper logic, decides whether to accept what the LLM thinks it's found out about the conversation. And that basically is a way that I think you can quite reasonably do safe large language models on the end of telephones to do some really quite astonishing things. You know, the ability of a large language model to determine a customer intent and to get information from a conversation is you know, it is actually incredible for something which is a computer system. It's something we're not used to being able to gain those kind of insights from conversation, but just accepting that because that kind of insight can be gained by what is basically operating on data, we can just give it agency to do what the heck it wants, is absolutely guaranteed to be disastrous. So that's pretty much my talk. You know, using LLMs in automated phone conversations can very definitely be service enhancing. It's certainly something that I think we've proved just through this code and agent is entirely possible. It does need very careful design to harness the language recognition strength of the models whilst containing their non-deterministic properties. And you know, I kind of think that solving these implementation issues with the best practice open source repo seems like quite a good idea, which is why we developed this and released it. So if you know you also think that's interesting, then come and join us in doing that. There's a bunch of links and contact info. The GitHub for the repo, the LLM agent, is at the top of there. To try it out, you can just go to it, go to llm.applicay.com, register, type in a prompt. It'll give you a UK phone number, I'm afraid. There's only a pool of about 30 or 40, so if you know the 10,000 people watching this TADHack live stream all go and hit that, then everything will probably collapse horribly. Just try again in 10 minutes. And the API documentation is there on llm.applicay.com/API. My contact info is there. I'm Rob from Applicay. That's rob@applicay.com. There's a contact form there, and there's a LinkedIn QR code if you do LinkedIn. Questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Any questions? Yeah, let me just grab the mic. It's okay.
Hello. Hey, so just an exploratory question really around agent-to-agent negotiations there. I'm just fascinated by how that might evolve, that particular part of the whole kind of LLM framework. Like, how do you think that might move?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that the way it's going to move, that there's a vast amount of manpower goes into selling people things and procuring things, right, on a commercial level. And on a personal level, you know, there's a great deal of attention span goes into life management. It seems pretty obvious to me that a lot of that can be automated away with this kind of agent. I think the harm is, you know, as I showed in that demonstration, LLMs know how to interact with each other. They don't actually do strategy or maths. So your strategy and maths need to be in that gatekeeper function. I mean, those two LLMs actually, when they were talking to each other, they arrived at a price point, even after that bit of confusion, which was within both their parameters. So the buyer was told they had to have 75% margin on a sell price of £2, and the seller was told, you know, that a really complicated variable cost model where it was, you know, £14 a delivery plus 14p a donut or something like that. So it was volume sensitive, and somehow, you know, through the power of LLMs to see similar patterns, they kind of arrived at something. But there's no way on this planet you would ever trust an LLM to do maths and work out, you know, whether you were getting the best mortgage deal for the next 25 years. You would need at least some coded understanding of the maths there. But yeah, this is a direction of travel. So much human endeavour is spent interacting with bureaucracy pointlessly, or being bureaucracy pointlessly, that yeah, there's going to be a lot of money in this.
Cool, excellent answer. Any more questions? Yep, just hang a second, Roman.
It's more general question is, do we, is it a good thing to give a decision to LLM? I mean, in the end, the negotiation is doing decision. So, is it a good thing for us as a species?
It could be profitable.
Yeah, there are some. I mean, this is a real developing area of ethics, of technology. There are some fantastic books on this. where people are starting to think about it. I think it doesn't matter, because you and I can stand here and say it isn't a good idea. Economically, it's transformational and it will happen. Loads of people.
Even decision, not only the interface, but
Yeah.
also the decision making.
You think that doesn't already happen? When you get a car insurance quote, do you think a human being is working out how much to charge you? An AI has figured out what your risk is for where you live and where your car is parked. So the precedent is there. This is going to accelerate at breathtaking speed, and that's, this whole danger of AI thing. There was the big kind of thing that happened a few months ago, where there was a pronouncement that we should be really scared of extinction risks. Well, maybe, but I think what we should be really, really scared about is just a really high-speed, pervasive move into AIs making decisions that can't be explained, because there are some really interesting harms that will come out of that. That's my personal take, but I'm a technologist, not a philosopher, but it is based on the technology that I've played with and the way that I see it being used.
But you could equally argue, trying to understand a lot of decisions humans make are equally perplexing.
I mean, that's interestingly true, and we did that customer service demo of the customer service agent who's got absolute ability to override everything. I queued for 20 minutes with my little number ticket at the ticket office, and the guy gave me a reservation. I picked it up and I walked out. I'm trying to read the ticket in German because I just about read German. And as I walked away from the desk, I realised he'd given me a ticket in the wrong class. He'd given me a reservation in the wrong class for my ticket, so I had to rush back to the desk before he pressed the next number button and explain that. So whenever you give anything, the best thing to do, and as a computer scientist, I hate this, is write the algorithms right in the first place, and then it doesn't matter what the interface is. But if we're going to give unconstrained choice to these things, it's going to be interesting, and humans screw up just as badly.
Exactly. Anything else?
Nice, just answer. So.
Do you think we're close, or maybe already have the capabilities to have a conversation where one of the callers, for example, talks past the endpoint detection, and or maybe interrupts the answer from the other person? Because now both speakers in the demo, just like you have two people who wait till the end and then politely answer on the full reply of the previous person. Do you see any progress? Maybe some other demos from other companies where they have the possibility to interrupt and continue?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually. And when I set up some of these demos, it's perfectly possible for the agents to get into a loop where they're both interrupting each other. Because they can sync. It's not a solved problem yet, but it's a totally solvable problem. This is not, these are not hard problems to solve. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think we should solve it once in one big open source repo, just like we do other stuff. We've solved how to do SIP. I mean, God, if we can do SIP, we can do by having open source repos that do them very well. And that will be my claim. Let's get the safety and the efficiency of this thing sorted out somewhere in open source, because that's the way that computer science moves forward, right?
Absolutely agree. And we're sort of in this political phase where there's a lot of very rich billionaires that want to control the technology, hence fear and regulation, because as soon as you regulate, you stifle innovation and kill off open source. Anyway, any other questions? If not, go for it.
Yeah, I was also interested in the little bot-to-bot thing you did, which is kind of a real thing, because I've got several people trying to build a service on Jambones that's based on navigating an IVR, so you can talk to a person. So you have a bot that essentially is going to do that for you. But as you kind of get into that bot-to-bot, the question is why start with voice anyways? It's inefficient. And so my question is kind of, do we need a whole new channel in the contact center for, you've got a bot, so, because when I have a bot and you have a bot, it's like we have two henchmen that go out on a field of battle to talk to each other, saying, my guy needs this, he wants to solve this problem, and yeah, he's really pissed. I mean, a bot can't negotiate too well, and a bot's only authorized to do certain things. So it seems like it calls for a whole new channel that doesn't start voice, but can escalate to voice, either on one side or the other. I mean, the call center bot may say, well, we really need to talk to your guy, or you may say, this guy really needs to talk to an agent. It seems like maybe there's just a need for a whole new channel.
Yeah, I'm not in a million years going to argue that two computers talking to each other through a lossy medium like voice is a great idea. However, we already have loads of mechanisms for, EDI was invented like 30 years ago to do, this invoicing, purchasing, so if we wanted to write a bot, we could write one in COBOL to, arrive at the right price for some donuts. I think there are some interesting properties about this doing it through a voice medium thing. One is that you're not forcing the other end to be a bot, so it's the way this stuff is going to get forced on people, because it's the way that you can bring an analog channel like a human being in. And I think there's going to be an arms race thing there, but the brilliant property about it is that I can understand it as a human being, so I can hear it, I can see what's going on, I can press stop, I can fix it. So, and I would give you a sort of a kind of an example of why these kind of analog interfaces to technology. When I was somewhere else earlier in the week, someone was trying to show me where this nice place to go and visit was, and he pulled up his Google Maps and showed me a pin, relative to where their office was, and there are about 50 different ways of getting that pin to my phone. Instead, I just took my phone out and took a picture of his phone because, it's analog world, it's tangible, I understand it. And I think inventing another data interchange format for bots to talk to each other is, go ahead. But there are mechanisms that already exist and they haven't got much traction.
Excellent. What I suggest is thank Rob with another round of applause, run away from the speaker, for an excellent discussion. So let's break. Sandwiches are at the back there. I'm afraid we're out of coffee. That comes at 2, so you'll just have to have some water. And what I suggest is we get back to run through the rest of the agenda at 1 p.m. So it's like a 40-minute break, okay?
Et donc après le projet que j'ai attaqué, c'est